This journey of me following the migrants went from sort of 10 in the morning, all around the clock, to late at night, to the point where, you know, on buses, on trains, through streets, at every key point, French military police and the French police, they were there. They were on the bus, taking down notes, taking pictures, but not doing anything to deter the migrants or stop them, just being there. I was sat in the tent and he was showing me through photos of his phone, scrolling through. This was barbaric, horrific stuff. Blokes going through walls in vehicles and then jumping out and shooting everyone. You know, his WhatsApp picture was him with a mask on, with a gun like that.
You're in a tent with this guy?
I'm in a tent with this guy, and actually he's just showing me this stuff. I'm just thinking, this is not the kind of bloke you want to be coming to the UK.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hey, very good morning to you. Welcome to Wednesday, a wet Wednesday. God, it's awful out there. The 10th, no, it's the 11th, the date right, of February. Welcome along. Thank you for tuning in to Talk. It is, of course, the home of common sense. It's the home of alarm clock Brits. Poppy Coburn, on in just a minute, just said, I've been up since 5:30. Really, I've been up since 2 a.m. I left the coast. It's like a tornado out there. Whatever you're doing, I hate people that say this on the radio. Be safe, people. But if you are up and about, I don't know, just on the way back from the night shift, getting ready, already on the road. This is your station, this is your show, and thank you, by the way. I will keep saying this. More people are listening for longer to Talk Radio than ever before because it's about common sense and it's about your view of the news of the day. As ever, the A-team are primed and ready to go. We've got some fun today. 0344 499 1000. I'm going to instigate a prize for the first voice note of the morning. I'm not sure what the prize will be. Get your voice notes into Christian the minute you have an opinion. You can text the show 87222. Start your message with the word Talk. Where do I start? Well, let's start with Keir Starmer. Sorry, I have to, because this is unbelievable. Yesterday, in a sort of fight back, because he thinks everybody's against him, he's decided to sort of pitch himself as a working-class Prime Minister. He said it's an utter nonsense, don't know why I've done that, to suggest that everybody in life gets a fair chance. I feel very strongly about this. Do you? And then he went on to say, I've got a working-class cabinet. I've heard nothing about this in 18 months. This is a lurch to the left to placate Rayner and Miliband and all the people who are sat waiting to topple the least popular Prime Minister in the history of Prime Ministers. That's the truth, OK? That is the truth. If this man had a pair of balls, and I'm being honest, he'd have sacked Wes Streeting yesterday and shown that he's got something about him, but he won't. He's a lame duck. 0344 499 1000. I heard Kev do this on Drive Time. This sort of story, I know, will wind so many people up. Blexley on later to talk about it as well, and Rupert Lowe later as well from Advance UK. An Afghan migrant has been found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl just months after arriving in Britain. Ahmed Mukhalil, I don't know, laughed as he raped, sexually assaulted and then took indecent pictures of the schoolgirl in Nuneaton in Warwickshire. And get this, my friends, here you are, alarm clock breaking. This is where this country is. Get this. He only got to be identified by the police after he used his Home Office issued debit card to go and buy himself a drink after he'd raped her and left her on the floor. A Home Office issued debit card. I know a lot of people go, it's all you talk about. Well, it might be, and it will continue to be. How the hell are men like that in our country? How the hell have successive governments I mean, listen to Starmer, working class. What about young, white, English 12-year-old girls who are being raped, Sir Keir Starmer? In fact, Boris, all of you, disgraceful. Something needs to be done to rid this country, I'm very sorry, of men, illegal men who come here for no other intention but to take advantage. I think it's an utter disgrace. Would love to know what you think of that. 0344 499 1000. And you might have seen this this evening as well. Counter-terrorist police are investigating a double stabbing at a school in northwest London after two boys, aged 12 and 13, were attacked. They're in a serious condition. It was Kingsbury High School in Brent. Witnesses claim the attacker shouted Allahu Akbar during the stabbing rampage. Check this. A 13-year-old boy was arrested on suspicion of attempted double murder. 13, a knife in school, in broad daylight. Black Steel, come on, people will have their say. What have we become? Genuinely, well, we watch all these politicians arguing the toss about, you know, who's going to get the job. There are kids being stabbed in schools. There are girls being raped by men who shouldn't be here, who are given Home Office bloody debit cards, and our Prime Minister goes, oh, I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity. This, I promise you, and I don't mean to rant too early, this country is on its arse and something needs to be done pretty bloody quickly. 0344 499 1000. On a light-hearted note, though, before we go to Poppy, because I want you to use your brains this morning, Kemi Badenoch, who I think copied Trump, pitched up at McDonald's yesterday, page 2 of The Sun. There she is, serving fries. Isn't that like... Anyway, that's what Trump did. Anyway, which got Christian, the creative genius that produces this show, thinking, what's your first ever job? I want to know this morning what your first ever job... She's accusing the government of killing first jobs. Let me give you a little idea here of the weirdos that put together the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. My first job was stacking bananas at M&S and avoiding spiders for £1.25 an hour in 1734. Christian was a drug dealer. When I say that, he worked in a chemist, working out how much medicine to put. Mark, this is brilliant, big M, he cut lumps of cheese into squares for Dairy Crest. But perhaps, obviously, to anybody who listens to this show, Damien, a.k.a. G-Spot, because we can never find him, he was a nightclub promoter, aged 14 and a half. There you go, so that's all right, isn't it? What are your first jobs? 87222, start your message with the word talk, and we bring her on. Why do you bring on the person whose show it is? I'm just introducing you. Welcome to the Poppy Coburn Breakfast Show. How are you?
Good morning. There's a grimace on your face as you're saying that.
I don't mind. I just know I'm going to be inundated by texts going. Yesterday we were asking somebody about the intimacy between Mandelson, and I was asking everybody to put kisses, and men were going, I'm not doing that, I'm waiting until Poppy comes on tomorrow.
Much more pleasant.
What was your first job, Pops?
My first job was serving, and it's probably I might get in trouble for this, I used to serve pints to people at a bar when I was 15 years old, which I think is doubly illegal.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
So
OK, so a lot of illegality this morning on the JK Breakfast Show. Poppy, we saw you Monday. Monday was in itself extraordinary. We were saying he was holding on, and then whatever happened. You missed the joy yesterday of watching Wes Streeting tearfully say, yes, those are my messages. But... Keir Starmer's come out, all guns are blazing. If we look at, well, almost every page, but the Mail, page 6 and 7, details this in excellent thing. He's basically decided that he's turning it into a war. PM launches class war to save skin. Nearly being ousted has given the old booby an adrenaline rush. He was like an ostrich at a disco, says Quentin Letts yesterday morning.
Yeah, I think you could really see that. I mean, he even fell back on his old traditional, my dad was a toolmaker line, which I think people have started groaning when he says that in front of speeches, but he's been trying to really reaffirm his working class background.
This is from a £12 million house in London and a knighthood, yeah?
Well, look, here's the thing. I believe that he did obviously come from, you know, a more humble up background, but he was a KC, and he was the DPC of the country. So you don't get to continue calling yourself working class when you have a multi-million-pound house in North London. Sorry, that's my opinion. You know, you obviously come from a humble background, but fine. But now you're really not. And most importantly, the party that you represent is not working class. OK, it doesn't actually represent working people in the country. In fact, it's the most middle-class party in the entire country. That is where Labour's support comes from.
This is the interesting point, because he's decided that to presumably starve off any sort of left coup led by Rayner or Miliband, he's going to paint himself as the working class man. Listen to him say, this is really interesting as well, my cabinet's working class. Have a watch, have a listen, Pete.
the most working class cabinet in the history of this country, sitting around my cabinet table. And I'm really proud of that. Really proud of what they bring to the table. Their personal journeys to get there. Their experiences. But it is utter nonsense to suggest that that means everybody gets a fair chance in life. Utter nonsense. I feel very strongly about this. I'm in that cabinet as Prime Minister, having come from a working class background, to be Prime Minister of this country. But that's the exception. That is not the rule.
I know a lot of people say, Jez, you really do have it in for him. It's just, if you could see that on YouTube, there's 3 people who look like they've had their brains removed by surgery, sat looking at him like, when's this rubbish going to end? Does anybody believe what he said? Because you're dead right. I spend loads of my time in Newcastle with some of my best mates. Genuinely, nobody in working class areas sees him and the Labour Party as giving a toss about the working class anymore.
I mean, he's not exactly JFK, is he? I think that's supposed to be his, pot thumping, I'm coming back, I'm the leader of the country speech.
My table.
And you can just feel that your brain's trying to, liquidating out of your ear when he talks. I mean, yeah, this is the thing. Keir Starmer is not inspiring anyone. I think even the most public sector fat cat civil servant type is not inspired by Keir Starmer. But I think it is true that, considering the fact that he's had this loyalty from his front bench, obviously excluding West Streeting, he is now seriously considering a move to the left, almost as a bit of payback for them. And what concerns me is, as bad as Keir Starmer has been, and I know a lot of people say it cannot get any worse. Trust me, it can get worse. Yeah, and we're about to find out in the next couple of months how much worse it could get.
Make no mistake, though. You said this to me off air. He will not survive. You can dress that up as you want. 3 people are on Mogadon listening to him drone on again about nothing. He's a dead man walking.
He is a dead man walking.
This is desperate, right? And we can always, you move yourself in a direction to just buy time. Oh, voice note, ready? Dave, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Dave from Manchester, listening to the home of Alarm Clock Britain as I climb into my van for my 6 a.m. start. Disappointed to wake up overnight that Keir Starmer hasn't resigned. Shock.
There you go. And I said, not motivated at all. Otherwise, about him, moving to the left. You talked about Streeting. The Mail also talking about he's too weak to sack Streeting as well. And I thought, on the back of those messages, there was a very good opportunity to put your foot down and say, I'm not having this anymore.
I mean, that whole saga was absolutely remarkable, wasn't it? I mean, West Streeting has never done anything by accident. The man came out of the womb plotting to be a Labour Prime Minister. You can literally see it in his face. He's obsessed with it. And even those messages are kind of being released in a way to be maximally embarrassing for the Prime Minister. Like him having a little, bitch and a moan with Peter Mandelson being like, he just doesn't get it, he's just not really competent. All just veiled enough that he's got plausible deniability. Just veiled enough. But yeah, it is a completely disloyal thing to do when the Prime Minister is currently wobbling on the edge of whether or not he's going to stay in power, right, to leak those messages.
Well, there was talk yesterday, you weren't here, you need to move your hair from your microphone a little bit, sorry. Yeah, there was talk yesterday that he and Samwar he spoke to Samwar on Saturday, that the Scottish leader did what he was going to do, the Welsh one was going to do, and he expected Streeting the cards to fall in his direction. But even yesterday when he was going, yes, I mean, I know I put kiss, but he's a horrible man. Even then, I mean, he got ahead of the game because the rest of the cabinet were banned from releasing their messages by the security services. So he's I mean, listen, he used to speak to us. He won't come on the show. I mean, you're right. He makes no secret of the fact that he wants Keir Starmer's job. Wouldn't you, as a politician, as a Prime Minister, go, right, I'm sacking you, I'm showing you exactly... Oh, here we go. Ian, good morning.
Good morning. It's Ian from Onfirth. Oh, we've missed you, Pops. Kiss, kiss.
Thank you very much.
He loves it. This is all based on yesterday when everybody was intimately going, morning, sweet cheeks, kiss, kiss, kiss. Because do you send kisses to every person you send a text message to?
No, I don't. I send them to my mum and my nan.
Your mum and your nan?
Yeah, I send kisses to
them. That's
them.
Nice.
Yeah, I always do
What
that.
about your partner?
We don't send kisses. It's all very businesslike with us.
Is it?
Yeah.
I love that. I said, will he be listening? No, he's fast asleep, the lazy git in bed.
Make sure you pick up some more like kitchen roll. I'll be back at 6.
Isn't it romantic, that kitchen roll? Starmer, is there any way, and the Telegraph have been fantastic in the work they've done over this, is there any way in your mind, right, that he can survive?
No.
Not at all?
I think he's a dead man walking. He's like Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown managed to hang on despite being a lame duck Prime Minister for about 6 months, where he couldn't actually get anything through Parliament because his MPs would have rebelled. But he was still just kind of there while we were waiting for a general election to happen. I think the same is true of Keir Starmer, although perhaps without the general election angle. I think he will probably hang in until the May election.
You do?
Yeah, because, I mean, why get rid of him? If you are someone cunning like Wes Streeting, why would you want your first thing to be, as Prime Minister of the country, losing every single local council up and down the country? You just don't want that on the record.
I made the analogy yesterday about, like, football managers. You're going to come to the big club, but your next 2 games in Manchester City and Arsenal, you've got no bleeding chance, so wait 2 weeks and then take the job. Exactly.
I think what will happen is that will be the pretext which there is a formal leadership challenge. I think this whole loyalty brigade thing with, Angela Rayner and Ed Miliband coming out saying that they've got full faith in him. I mean, it's like the Keir Starmer kiss of death. Whenever Keir Starmer says he's got his full confidence in you, you can guarantee you'll be packing up your bags tomorrow. I think it's exactly the same with the front bench. They know he is dead, they know he is gone, but they're just wondering when is the right moment to strike. Because Wes Streeting's messed it up again. He's tried to go against him, I think, twice now officially. He's tried to do it over the Christmas period to get rid of him and was leaking to the press about that. And now he's tried to do it during this moment of weakness. I don't think he's going to get the job, personally.
I don't either.
But I think I'm now leaning more towards it's going to be Red Ed or Red Ange.
Red Ange, who's had a makeover on Monday and
She had a
Tuesday.
lovely haircut, which she posted on TikTok.
I know, it's extraordinary. Listen, 17 minutes past 6, whatever you think about the current situation of the Prime Minister, 0344 499 1000. He's a dead man walking, but he's lurching to the left. I want to ask you about this story. I mean, this is... honestly, I have to be really careful because I could end up being fired, literally, for saying anything. Page 16 of the brilliant Sun today. Migrant guilty of raping girl 12. Can I repeat what I said in the introduction for people waking up? An Afghan migrant, his name is Ahmed Mullakil, has been found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl just months after arriving illegally in Britain. The man raped, sexually assaulted and then took indecent pictures, Poppy, of this 12-year-old in Nuneaton. And get this, my friends, this honestly, Christian, I'm going to get fired. He only was identified by the police after he used his Home Office issued debit card to buy a drink after he'd raped her and left her on the floor.
Yeah.
How do you expect Alarm Clock Brits or anybody with a brain cell to listen to that and not want to... Honestly, it's outrageous, man.
Yeah, I just want to give a bit of political context to this as well and tie it back to what we were just be talking about with Keir moving towards the left. Every single one of his Labour MPs want to get rid of the ILR changes, which is like a small, reasonable check to say all the people that came in under Boris Johnson should not be immediately given a path to citizenship, right? And yet they will not allow that. So how can you expect them to act on our disgusting asylum system, which is basically open door at this point? If you can arrive in Britain, we can't get rid of you. We literally cannot deport anyone from Afghanistan, despite we know that Afghans are massively overrepresented in sex attacks. That's not just true in the UK, that's true all across Europe, particularly you can tell in Denmark because they gather the data, massively overrepresented in these kind of sex crimes. But we have no diplomatic ties to Afghanistan. We cannot deport them. These people, once they get to the country, they will remain here, probably kept by the taxpayer in prisons or released, God knows when, and they will always be on your public purse, always, until we change our immigration system. And it's one of those things where there's no social contract in this country anymore, because I know that my taxpayer money is going towards people like that. It's going towards putting up sex criminals that have no right to be here in the first place.
How did we get to a point, right, in a world where 2 young boys were stabbed yesterday evening in a school?
Yeah.
To a point where our government are fighting like rats, that social and public services are on their knees, that people who pay tax and live their lives correctly are listening now, looking at the radio and thinking, Right, so I do everything right, and an Afghan man can come into this country illegally, be given a debit card by the Home Office, rape a white 12-year-old schoolgirl, traumatise her probably for the rest of her life, and find himself, and this is really where I have to be careful, some taxpayer-funded human rights lawyer who'll save his backside from being deported because we're too soft to do anything like that, because that might be fundamentally a bad look, or sod a bad look.
Yeah.
Men like that should never get in this country, or they should be detained and deported instantly. And I know it's only 6:20, but Alarm Clock Britain would expect more from just us, the country, the government.
Well, I just think even
beyond
one person's life being ruined as a result of this immigration system should have been enough for the government to throw up its hands and go, enough. That's done. For me, actually, it was the Manchester Arena attacks.
Yeah.
Because when we found out that the Manchester Arena attacks, the mother, who was actually living in Libya, was still claiming benefits from the British government because they hadn't bothered to follow up on her, and they used her benefit money to build the bomb that killed those people in Manchester. And they didn't act then, and I was like, fine, they're never going to act. Because when something like that can be done to British people, and they just shrug and go, oh, don't look back in anger, we've all got to move on. You can just tell them they're going to look at stories like this that now come out on a weekly basis, and they're going to go, nothing you can do. Sorry, it's too difficult.
And just to repeat what you said before we go to a break, I think it's really, really powerful. And I'm not, by the way, laying this entirely at Labour's door. I think successive
Tories
governments
did it
have been
too.
pathetic and lacking in any will or desire. And I've heard all the people that say that there are parties out there that argue, like Reform, for stronger measures on, and oh, you're racist, and that's not fair. I've had arguments with people left, right and centre. Well, try explaining that to somebody whose daughter's been raped, or somebody whose house has been burgled, or whose business has been ransacked, who's had to then watch our legal system make the perpetrator of the crime get away with it and the victim just get left. Every single member of that front bench who are vying to be the next Prime Minister have done nothing about this.
Well,
Vote of the ILR. Just explain a little bit about that, the Independent Leave to Remain.
Yeah, well, so this ILR thing, which is supposed to stop the Boris wave, and it comes from a white paper on immigration that Morgan McSweeney had actually been pushing for, to his credit. What that's supposed to do is, if you've been in the country for 5 years, you automatically get a leave to remain. And when you have leave to remain, you can claim public funds. So that means you don't need to pay your NHS surcharge, you can gain access to benefits and all the other things that you can get from the British state. And it was pointed out that this is going to be a massive disaster because of how many people were let in under Boris Johnson's government who were making very, very low skilled, very low wages, or they were dependents. People forget that about half the people that came in were dependents and never had a job in the first place. So to stop that kind of ticking time bomb, it was suggested that we change the rules on indefinite leave to remain and just move it back a bit. Let's just change it to 10 years.
Yeah.
Totally reasonable, in line with most of Europe. And every single Labour MP has been getting up and going, what a disgrace, how unfair, what a betrayal of the people that came to this country. They haven't bothered speaking about the fact that we are going to have to pay for a decision that we never voted for. We never wanted this immigration surge, but we're going to have to pay the bill for it. They haven't bothered bringing any of that up.
It enrages me, and there's a word in there that you use that I think sums up this entire debate: fairness. Unfair on migrants, unfair on criminals. What about, the fairness on the British people? I would read that text, but none of them have come through to my screen. So that's just a technical issue. I'll do it in just a text. 6:23. 12-year-old victim sexually abused by an Afghan monster. How many more sexually abused victims is it going to take for politicians to do their jobs right and protect girls, Poppy, from sexual abuse from these scumbag migrants who abuse these girls? I'm a victim, Jez, and a survivor of sexual abuse in the 80s, and it still affects me today. I am so angry by the failure of a system. They keep falling at this. You need to wake up, do your jobs. You're idiots. Honestly, people are suffering. The system needs reforming.
Yeah.
That's from a woman who was abused.
Yeah.
That 12-year-old girl's life will never recover,
Yep.
and yet we're surrounded by politicians who go, oh, this man has a right to be in this country. No, he damn well doesn't. Jeremy, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy, and wonderful Poppy. Jamie here from Hamilton. Waking up to another scumbag raping a 12-year-old girl. It's a disgrace. In my opinion, Keir Starmer's got blood on his hands. They need to go now. Great show. Take care.
The reality is you've got a dud leader, but you've got a load of dud people who can possibly take over. You think that's not going to actually make things any better, and they're not quite ready yet. And he's been given a stay of execution for a couple of months, and then until the inevitable happens. You know it, I know it, the voters know it. The only person who probably doesn't know it is the Prime Minister.
I disagree. I think the reception he received in the Parliamentary Labour Party last night was actually genuine. I think people are annoyed with Keir Starmer to a degree.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:28. Well, back to the Poppy Coburn Breakfast Show with me, the co-host Jeremy Kyle. Poppy Coburn is in enraged. You said something just then when we were talking about the Afghan crisis, and I think it's really, I want to say this. You said that any political party that sticks its head above the parapet and says, let's start talking about the rights of British people, young British girls, or businesses, or just that, you know, it's unacceptable for these people to come to this country when we don't know who they are and they're criminals, la, la, la. I gave you the story off air about Bangor University that have cancelled Reform Sarah Poacham. We did this yesterday, going and speaking to them because apparently she's a fascist, homophobic, misogynistic cow.
Yeah.
And you said, isn't it interesting that people on the other side of wherever you are think that you're motivated merely by hate?
Yeah.
But you're not motivated by hate. You're motivated about the fact this Afghan story enrages us all because our country's going to the dogs.
Yeah. I find it just appalling that, like, you know, I would disagree with people politically, but I have no problem being friends with them at all. Right? Because that's normal, right? You shouldn't let politics dictate your friendship.
But isn't that a democracy where you would stand toe-to-toe with somebody in debate and then just go down the pub?
Exactly.
What is wrong with it?
But with the modern left at the moment, they genuinely treat you like you're an unreasonable person, that you're like a fascist in waiting, that you're dangerous for like having a different opinion. And if you explain to them why you feel the way they do, they just put their hands over their ears and they go, la, 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 not listening, not listening.
My truth, my truth. Yeah. You're a fascist. Yeah. Honestly, you know, I don't want to be too... One of my children thinks that I am the devil incarnate. Yeah. Literally, I mean, literally, if I said to her this morning about this 12-year-old girl, but is that true? And you know, she said something as well during the break. Fair play to the Sun. This Afghan that raped this 12-year-old girl, I repeat this story, was only identified by the police after he used his Home Office issued debit card to buy the girl a drink after the rape. Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah.
The truth is, that's not on the front page of any newspaper.
Yeah.
That's how messed up some of the media are. Fair play to the Sun for reporting it. And actually, and I'm not just complimenting your paper, The Telegraph. Why is that not? Because and I hate this phrase, the mainstream, people don't want you to know that's going on. Well, it is going on. Yeah. It is going on every day.
Well, the other thing about this is that the country's so messed up that we have multiple stories involving 12-year-olds today. One which involves a teenager held in terror for terror stabbing, where a child was stabbed in the neck in a school. I mean, this is how messed up the country is at the moment, that this is just the news that we now expect on an ordinary day.
Counter-terrorist police are investigating a double stabbing at a school you're waking up to in north-west London after two boys, aged 12 and 13, are in a serious condition after the attack. It was at Kingsbury High School in Brent. Now, witnesses claim... That's all I'm said. The attacker shouted Allahu Akbar during the stabbing rampage, and a 13-year-old, did you hear me? A 13-year-old is currently being held on suspicion of attempted double murder. I had a really great chat with Mark, who's just my age and we're as bitter and twisted as each other before we came on air. I don't like getting old, but there's a point where you go, I don't think I'd want to be 20 anymore. Yeah. I genuinely look at it now and I go, what the hell's gone wrong? You can't have another opinion. Stabbing a third... You've heard the story which would drive the viewers and listeners mad when I did a television show years ago about knife crime. And I'm stood in a street in South London. It's 10 to 4. There's camera crews everywhere, and I've got 4 kids with balaclavas on, and it's, you know, it's not frightening. I'm just doing the job. And I said to them, is anybody holding? This is I swear on my life, on everything I've got. And the bloke went, sorry, mate, hold on a sec. Mum? What? And he shouted, and this woman stuck her head out of a window 75 yards down the road. She went, what? He went, bring us my knife, will you? And she walked in a dressing gown. You think I'm winding you up? From her house, straight in front, handed him what looked like a machete and buggered off back to bed. I'm not joking. Facts.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened. Nick, good morning.
Morning, Jez and Poppy. Where was the accountability with these migrants raping our daughters? Every one of these rapes is a political choice. Every single one of them. They've decided to not stop the boats. They've decided to let these people walk free amongst us. How do we actually hold these people to account? Every single girl that gets hurt by a migrant should be on a rap sheet for Keir Starmer and his government. And I never hear any politician talking about, we will make them pay for what they've done to this country. Anyway, it just makes me so angry. Have a great day, guys.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. That's exactly how you should see it. You know, every single time these politicians come out and they virtue signal and they go, look at me, I'm so moral, I'm so high and mighty, I'm so morally pure. You should remember these crimes and the fact that they see this as collateral damage, OK?
Collateral
It is
damage.
collateral damage.
How bad is that, man?
That is what it is, because then they won't do anything about the system. They won't change the asylum system. It's too difficult for them.
But is it? This is a debate I'd love to have. People always say to me, well, it's difficult. How is it difficult?
Well,
because what, you might get a reaction like Trump.
No, exactly.
Well, round them up.
It's not actually difficult.
No,
what you have to
it
do...
might upset a few people.
It's going to upset people. You leave a few treaties, you hire a few more police officers, you hire more enforcement, and you commit to deport people back to their countries, including countries where, well, like Afghanistan, where they're probably not going to treat them very kindly. But you go, you know what? Not my problem. They're not British.
But why does that, which I completely agree with, saying it's not our problem, why is that such a heinous crime in the eyes of the young or the left who say, well, it should be? And I always want to say to them, but they won't listen, right? What about the 12-year-old girl that's been raped?
Well, because no human is illegal, because human rights are human rights. It is all these kind of slogans. But no, it's really important, because if you try and explain to them, do you think it's possible that someone that comes from rural Afghanistan might have different views on women than a Bristol graduate with dreadlocks? Like, do you think that they might have different views on women? And they'll go, no. Because they're all the same. All human beings are the same.
They're not.
Everyone's the same. And you go, but there's a different culture there. There's a culture that respects women and there's a culture that doesn't respect women and sees them as fair game. And they will not accept that. They think you are a racist for even thinking that. And if you explain, well, I've got all these crime statistics, this group commits this set of crimes at a much higher rate, should we do public policy on the basis of fact, not opinion, fact? They go, no, won't do it, won't touch it. How dare you even say that? That's the problem.
And it's so powerful, and I don't mean this, I mean to hear a young woman talking out of this, because it's, I don't get it. Listen to Cade from Suffolk. Good morning, Poppy, and that other bloke, right? In my opinion, the government is quite literally playing rape Russian roulette with our kids. It's absolutely sickening. I could say more, but it wouldn't be appropriate at this time in the morning. Hello to Dave in Lichfield. Until the mainstream media start doing what talkTV does and actually report the facts and key details, such as the Home Office debit card in stories like this, the swing in public opinion needs demand change will stay below the surface. I get called a gammon. The fact is I'm a Gen Z brought up in an era where we were taught critical thinking. That's interesting. Morning, Poppy and the other bloke, right? John in Nottingham. I worked at the local fairground for a couple of days. It put me off fair rides for life. When we look back on Monday the 9th of February, it's got to be named Coward and Traitors Day. Starmer and his cohorts are indeed self-serving traitors. Loads of anger this morning. Louise, why does Starmer pretend his family were poor when he was growing up? A family at that time with parents who were a skilled toolmaker and a nurse were actually quite comfortably off. John Roberts. Morning, Poppy and Jez, I suppose. My first job. This is because we flit around on this show for very good reason, because otherwise we go nuts. This is a great story. Well, it's not great at all. It's a picture of Kevin Bednock trying to be Donald Trump, I think, and going to McDonald's yesterday and serving fries and basically saying the government aren't interested in first jobs. What was your first job again? Illegally selling drinks?
Yeah, selling drinks in a bar when I was 15.
Nice. My first job, age 14, was helping on a milk round, Saturdays and a paper round Monday to Friday. There's nothing dodgy about that, Tony. My first job was making the crosses that went on the top of a hot cross bun.
What?
Wow.
That's a fantastic job.
Worryingly, he said he's never eaten one since. At 13, says Steve, I got up at 5 a.m, did a paper round, then at 15 did the same paper round before school and after school, worked in the local barber shop. Once I left school, I got an electrical apprenticeship for the next 5 years. I'm now 60 and have found myself working all my life. You idiot. You idiot. Why don't you just sign on? Why would you bother working? Starmer was brought up in Oxted, Surrey. Oxted makes Weybridge look like a bleeding ghetto, says Howard. Brilliant. Talk. Charles Kemp, good morning. Can you please dub that idiot Starmer's voice with a voiceover like they used to with Jerry Adams? I just can't bear to hear that bleeding creep's voice anymore. Let's get serious again. Oh, hold on, sorry. Julian in Newport. Morning, Poppy. My first job was a bingo caller in the arcade where they filmed Gavin and Stacey back in 1983, is it? What's that? Look at old Christian's Welsh, apparently. My first job was filling petrol cans at a petroleum plant in Hull back in 1971, says Paul. God. Dave, the man who wants a breakfast club. Morning, Poppy, and that other guy. My first job was a paper round, $2.50 a week, and there were no breakfast clubs. Morning, Poppy, says Mark in Croydon. My first job was stacking shelves at Safeways. I had to wear a bow tie. Brilliant. Rachel Davis. It's Rachel. My first job back in 1998 was an apprentice at the hospital. I was on £173 a month. But let's sum it up with this. I love this, Pete. My first job was at Woolies in the stock room, 3 nights a week and a Saturday at the age of 13. Strangely, stabbing people at that time didn't seem something that we considered. But it's true, isn't it? Were we naive or what? The world seems to be, and I will continue railing against it. I think it's frightening.
Well, I mean, I even have a story about that because I did used to work at Tesco as well. That was my university summer job.
Was it?
And I remember during the training period, we were told by someone that if someone tries to steal something from a shop or get aggressive, what you do is you press the big red button and you don't get involved. And the reason why you don't get involved is because someone got stabbed to death at one of our London branches, lol, and we don't want to have to pay the life insurance for it. So just never ever get involved if you see a crime being committed in the store because someone might pull out a knife and kill you. So that was fun hearing that when I was 18 and going, oh, I'm not going to stop if someone goes to the smoked salmon bit and puts it in their backpack.
Which is why now you stand and you see in boots and chemists and pharmacies and supermarkets and corner shops, people just come in and throw I honestly, Marky, I'm glad we're old. I mean, you're not as old as me, you look it, but that's different. Right, 22 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. JK on breakfast with the undoubtedly talented Poppy Coburn. You're waking up to the news headlines that Keir Starmer is clinging on for dear life, and his latest idea is to pitch to the left. He says, my cabinet is working class, I'm working class. This is to placate the left, Miliband and Rayner, who want his job. It's not going to work. The man's just a dead man walking. He hasn't even got the balls to sack Streeting, of course, after yesterday. And the story that's enraging you this morning, and quite rightly too, an Afghan migrant yesterday found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton. Ahmed Mukhalil laughed, ladies and gentlemen, as he raped, sexually assaulted and then took pictures of the poor girl. And get this, he was only identified by the police after he used his Home Office issued debit card, OK, to buy the girl a drink after the rape. That's the only way we knew how this scumbag was in our country. And then you wake up this morning to more news that a teen is held for the terror stabbing of 2 boys, 12 and 13, in class somewhere in the United Kingdom. And people wonder why we're becoming cynical. 20 to 7.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 20 minutes to 7 o'clock. We're live across the UK. This is JK on the home of Alarm Clock, Brits and Common Sense Talk. And you're waking up to the news that our desperate Prime Minister is clinging on by moving to the left. And you're also as incandescent with rage as I am about the rape of that 12-year-old girl in Warwickshire and the Afghan migrant, I'm going to keep saying it, only identified because his Home Office issued debit card flagged up to the police that he shouldn't be here. Poppy Coburn is here. Morning, Jez. Warren from Hull. The rape of that 12-year-old girl. I'm incandescent with rage. This is on Starmer. He's got blood on his hands. He could have had this stopped. He'd had a pair. 18 months, and it's as bad, if not worse, during his stint. Brits need to feel safe. We have our own wrong-uns. Look at the Royals without importing more into our once great country. Barry says, Starmer, working class, don't make me laugh. Rupert Lowe says, John is on later. Yes, he is. Morning, Poppy. Starmer can't sack Streeting, you try saying that, because he's given the PM his full confidence, says Dave in Aberdeen. Can I talk about a slightly light-hearted story on the front of your newspaper? I read this. It's like the Jeremy Kyle show. The Olympic cheating scandal you didn't expect. I don't know what this man's name is. Oh, yes, I do. Studio Home Langred. Probably got that wrong. Anyway, in the Winter Olympics yesterday, he won a bronze medal, which was apparently very unexpected, and he was delighted. And they interviewed him, and this is what he said. 6 months ago, I met the love of my life. Everybody was looking at him, and it was great. And I would have wanted to have celebrated today with her, but 3 months ago, I slept with one of her friends. And everybody went, sorry? And I just want to give you Mark's line, because it's brilliant. And since that point, the whole relationship's gone downhill. Why would you do that there? What's that all about?
Well, he said it was a desperate attempt, if I humiliate myself publicly, that she might come back to me. And this is the sort of thing that you see in, like, romance films. But when they actually happen in real life, you go, oh, that's a bit weird. That's a bit strange.
I ask you this, I don't, because you're like me, you're a lad with the wrong bits, aren't you, really? But if a man cheated on you...
Yes.
And then he won an Olympic medal, and he went on television and said, I made the biggest mistake of my life, Poppy. Would you forgive him, or would you just be even more embarrassed that he told the whole world? I'd be way more embarrassed.
I'd be like, thank you for telling everyone that I'm a mug, and making this day all about how awful you are and self-pity. I'd be really annoyed. I'd be like, but you can send me the medal in the post, and maybe that might help soften my cold heart. We're gonna speak to Kinsey Schofield in just a tick, but I've got to share this with you. First jobs. Kemi Badenoch yesterday in McDonald's pretending to serve burgers, saying that the government's against first jobs. Kev from Devon, my first job at 12 was milking cows on the Agatha Christie estate at Greenaway in South Devon. Wow. Christian, who produces this show, has just shared the most astonishing story about his other first job, which was at Asda. Am I right in saying that? And he worked in the salad bar, and his job with his badge, which said, I'm here to help, was to fill the salad bowls. So he'd go backwards and forwards to the salad holding room, and he was very new, and he was 2 days into his job, and his bowls of salad were empty, so he wheeled through the double doors to get himself a cucumber, maybe, you know why I've said that, or whatever, and there was his line manager with one of his colleagues. Bent over the salad bar. It was, well, no, absolutely, genuinely true. They wiped it down afterwards.
Chris went, sorry, and left with a cucumber. I mean, the whole thing's particularly bizarre. There you go. Welcome to the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. First jobs. Ken, shall we play Ken? Morning, Ken.
Morning, Jez. It's Ken here in Dorset. What's with this Starmer trying to polish up his working class credentials? If he cared about the working class, he wouldn't be making life so difficult for us at the moment. And as for being working class, well, yeah, so was Trotsky and Lenin and Stalin and Mao. Cheers, Jez. Great show.
Lovely. 7:15. Let's do what we always do at this time of morning and cross live and exclusive to Los Angeles in California to the legend that is Kinsey Schofield. Morning, Kins.
Hi, Poppy. Hi, JK.
Oh, she's at it as well. What was your first job, Kins?
I was a nanny for twins in Oklahoma. Oh, I know you like nannies.
Oh, here we go. Everybody's gone, oh, when everybody mentions the nanny, Jez ended up marrying his. Now we're in trouble. Thank God you're 8,000 miles away. No, it's not. Don't be nasty, you lot. Kinsey, This royal story that we have been talking about, tied into Epstein, will not go away. We've had a poll overnight in the UK that think a majority of British people think the King should encourage, as strongly as he can, Andrew to testify about Epstein. We saw a senator last night with some of the survivors from the Epstein trauma say, listen, mate, get your backside over here. It's the least you should do. What's your take on this?
Well, you know, I love your country. And a part of me feels like, why wouldn't American politicians focus their attention on some of the Americans featured in the Epstein files versus going after the big fish, going after Andrew, knowing that it's not likely going to happen? Don't you think it's a little ridiculous that we're not focusing on our own leadership here?
Yeah, I do, and I do desperately try to balance it, and I think I look at Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, and I think that's quite right, but she's the only one who is in prison. For a long time, I thought that the Duke of York, ex-Duke of York, seemed to be the only person who was being done. But there is so much tied up into this, and he's become, I suppose, a figurehead for the horror that is Epstein. I have to say, after we spoke yesterday, I had Andrew Loney on, and he said something that I really do agree with. I think the monarchy's in real trouble. I think that if you saw William yesterday in Riyadh, people were shouting out questions which he ignored. At Charles the day before, somebody shouted, how much do you know? And it doesn't sicken me, that's the wrong word. It really concerns me, mate, that I mean, Andrew thinks that the King might have to abdicate and sweep it clear and give it to William. I mean, he genuinely thinks that strongly.
Well, I did see the polling that there is a significant amount of people that do believe that Andrew should testify, and King Charles would be facing, I think he is facing what may be the most difficult moment of his entire life, certainly the most difficult of his reign. I would argue it rivals the emotional and institutional chaos of the Diana divorce and death. But this time, he's not a husband or a son. He is the sovereign, and that makes the stakes undeniably higher. The world is watching. This is history in the making. If Andrew testifies, it will be an unbelievably humiliating moment for the British royal family. The headlines will be vicious. The global press will descend. Every allegation, every association, every past misstep will be dragged back into the light. It would be an avalanche of negative coverage that could dominate the news cycle for weeks, if not months. And unlike past scandals, this one cuts into issues of exploitation and abuse, the kind of scrutiny that it doesn't just embarrass the monarchy, it can permanently erode public trust. There is a real possibility it could turn segments of the public against the institution itself.
And I couldn't agree more. And for a king who wants to modernise, because I think he's always understood that the sense of entitlement, I think that's the word you need when you're talking about Andrew, the sense of entitlement to many is now unacceptable. And for a man who's tried to streamline and get it right, this is a terrible, terrible situation. I don't dislike King Charles. I think he's had you spend your entire life knowing your job's only going to happen when your mother dies, and if you open your mouth, you're interfering, and if you do nothing, you're a layabout. I think he's done remarkably well. But I do think, and I really am not over-exaggerating this, that the feeling, and it's increasing in this country, you can tell it is, how long have you been covering up that the problem that is Andrew, that everybody keeps alluding to, we talked yesterday, some people didn't like it. What did the Queen think the 12 million was for? But her legacy is intact. He was her favourite son. But how many people inside those palaces, courtiers, close protection officers, all of them, knew what this man was up to? Because at the end of the day, what's happening here, I don't know about the States, is the silent majority's voice is being heard, and they are focusing in and zoning in on the royal family and politics in equal measure now.
This is such an impossible, this is what's impossible for the king. If he is seen as discouraging Andrew from testifying, or if Andrew refuses to speak, then the narrative shifts immediately. It becomes about obstruction, about secrecy, about whether the palace had something to hide. People will start asking if there was a cover-up, whether fair or not. The optics the optics are very damaging. Silence in this case looks like complicity. So the king is trapped between two disastrous options: encourage Andrew to testify and brace for humiliation, or keep him quiet and risk appearing as though the monarchy is protecting one of its own at the expense of accountability. Personally, I don't find Andrew credible. We've had this conversation. I think his past interviews have demonstrated that. I do not trust him as a narrator of events, but I also understand why the public wants him to speak. People want transparency. They want answers. They want to see whether there is accountability at the highest level. But this is a no-win scenario for King Charles, and I genuinely do not envy him. Whatever decision is made, the damage will not be minor. The only question now is which kind of damage the monarchy believes it can survive.
2 questions. Does the monarchy survive this?
It does, because I think people do believe in Prince William and Catherine. I think that they want that future. And that's not to discourage King Charles, but I do think that there's more faith, hope, and love when it comes to Prince William and his young family.
Can you see a scenario then, the million-dollar question, where because in his heart he suddenly realises that he's in an impossible position, maybe not of his own making, as sovereign, that the only way to save the institution he believes in 1,000,000% is to abdicate and pass the throne to his son William?
For history's sake, I wonder if he would say, I'm sick, and that's why I'm doing it, so he doesn't bow out because of such a vulgar and disgusting case and scenario.
It's a really interesting answer. I hadn't thought about that. And finally, it almost sickens me to the stomach to be telling you this. Sarah Ferguson has been in the UAE and, according to her friends, is plotting an astonishing comeback. She says, I need to get back to work because I'm skinned.
Did this not just make you laugh? I mean, when Fergie says she wants to hire a PR firm, which is what she says to her friends, I've got to hire a PR firm. I've got to get back to work because I need money. You know, I think people need to understand what that could actually entail. This is not calling up a publicist to book a morning show appearance. This is not hiring someone to refresh your Instagram grid. If your name is circling in the same orbit as Jeffrey Epstein, you are in full-scale crisis territory. Real crisis management at that level involves 24/7 monitoring, rapid response teams, coordinated legal strategies. I mean, the cost is unreal. They would build war rooms, JK. They would have staff analyzing around the clock to prepare for new document drops, testimony leaks, nasty interviews about her. That does not cost a few $1,000s. That starts at a few $100,000 a month. A serious crisis retainer could run $250,000 to $750,000 per month in the early phase alone.
And more of that, and I get that. And overall, here's the other thing. Are you completely and utterly deluded, you stupid woman? You have done harm. It's over. Disappear. Have some dignity and start talking about the victims of this instead of yourself.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm more literal. To me, I'm sitting back thinking, you know, she says she needs money to work, but what capital does she have to fund this comeback? The bank of Jeffrey Epstein is closed to Sarah Ferguson. The irony is brutal. But you're right. I mean, from a behavior standpoint, she shouldn't be plotting her comeback. She should be mourning the destruction that this person and her relationship with this person has done to so many people, not just her ex-husband, but the victims and everyone involved. Jeffrey Epstein, who could have ever imagined that you might be losing a prime minister? Andrew has lost his entire lifestyle. I mean, who could have predicted it? It's unbelievable.
It is completely unbelievable and won't go away. Seeing you every morning puts a spring in my step and gets me through the rest of the day. I love you, Kinsey Schofield. Thank you so much indeed. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 5 to 7. This is Talk. Billy, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Morning, Poppy. Kiss, kiss to both of you. Hey, sharing's caring. I just wanted to drop a message about this Afghan migrant that done this horrendous crime against this young 12-year-old. Obviously, it's not the first that's happened in the country, and it probably won't be the last. But you know what's even worse is that the fact that many of soldiers and veterans like myself that went and spent hard grafting in Afghanistan over many years, and we lost 497 of our comrades. to make that country better and prosperous. And now they're all coming here and doing this. That just twists the knife a little bit more. What is this country coming to?
So in the time that Labour have been here, more people have come illegally, young men, fighting age men, men that do not share our culture have come to our country, and we are now facing a situation where our army is smaller than the amount of illegal migrants that have come here under this Labour government. Any government can smash those gangs, any government can turn back those boats. Again, it is about the will of the government to do it. It can be done. They've done it in Italy, they've done it in Australia. We can do it here.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Poppy Coburn has been here. She's now Monday to Wednesday on our own show. Astonishing. It's been the most astonishing week. And of course, the political thing, you're waking up to the news that Starmer pitches further to the left. Yeah. He's a dead man walking. Prince Andrew under pressure to come clean. And I just want to pick back up on what Kinsey said quickly. That's a very interesting point. If pressure builds and builds, and the only way to save the monarchy is for the king to stand aside, he's ill, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so. And also, handing over to William is a kind of neat way to...
Clean break.
Yeah. You know, because it's without the stench of scandal. You know, you get to do it with a bit of dignity, and you get to make way for someone who's really popular. I mean, everyone loves Kate and Wills.
Yeah,
so.
and you sort of believe that they will send it. The other story you're waking up to was turning everybody's stomach, the Afghan migrant who shouldn't have been here raping a 12-year-old girl and being found and discovered and identified by the police only after he used his Home Office issued debit card to buy the girl a drink after he'd raped her. Yeah. And you were so strong on this today. It's not going away, this.
No, it's
There's
not.
no will, is there?
No, it's not. And you know, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, it won't be the last story like this that we read about. Until we get a new government that actually cares and wants to do something different with our asylum system, we will keep reading stories like this. I'm really sorry to say.
We love having you on. Are you all right for me to do it for the rest of the show? Will you go off and...
You know, I give my full trust to you. I think you're going to do a fantastic job.
You're going out for a breakfast? You're going to a breakfast club now, are you?
Yeah, I'm going to learn how to brush my teeth.
Good girl, well done. Poppy Coburn back Monday on the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. We're live across the United Kingdom. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222, and we'll kick off the next hour after the news at 7 with the Deputy Reform Richard Tice.
We reject, we reject. We reject, we reject.
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
He's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today? So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and this is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently and pragmatically and challenging them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 7 o'clock. Welcome to a wet Wednesday, the 11th of Feb. We're live across the UK on the home of common sense and where alarm clock Brits have their say. You're waking up to some dreadful stuff. We'll talk about the Afghan in a minute. Keir Starmer, though, has lurched to the left. He's all working class all of a sudden and cares about everybody who's had a terrible start in life. He's only just mentioned this, of course, which is probably something to do with the fact that the left, under the guise of Rayner or Miliband, are out for his job. He's a dead man walking. The story that's really getting traction this morning is disgusting. I make no apology for it. An Afghan migrant has been found guilty of raping a 12-year-old schoolgirl in Nuneaton in Warwickshire. Ahmed Mullakil, this is disgusting, raped the girl, sexually assaulted her, took indecent pictures and was, and I don't even know what you're supposed to say, was only identified by our police after he used his Home Office issued debit card to buy the girl a drink after he'd raped her. Jez, this monster came in March last year under Starmer and 4 months later raped this poor child. Starmer, you have blood on your hands, says Zoe in Lancashire. And George in Leicester makes a point. Morning, Jez. Can I ask a question? If a British man raped a foreign young girl in their own country, would it be brushed under the carpet? And by that he means, as I do, this isn't on the front page of every newspaper, and it damn well should be. We should say a very good morning to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK. They've talked a lot about immigration. Richard Tice, good morning.
Morning to you. It's a truly shocking story yet again. And yet again, it seems that the authorities attempted to keep this sort of below the carpet, covered up, hidden away. We need some proper transparency on all of this data. It's just outrageous, over and above the heinous crime itself.
I couldn't agree more. Poppy Coburn said something that sort of, I agree with Richard, but turns my stomach. She said, so many in government will just think of this girl as collateral damage. Let me ask you, that represents a party that has talked openly about detain and deport. We look across at America and we see the uproar that, I mean, obviously there's a few things that have happened with ICE that are completely unacceptable. I want to make that point. But the concept of sending armed officers onto the streets and into people's houses to grab them because they shouldn't be there and to deport them from your country. Can you see that happening in this country? And if so, do you think the British public would stomach it? Because the more you hear stories like this, the more you think somebody needs to take action.
Oh, I think the vast majority of the British public do want this to happen. Guess what? That's why we're leading in over 200 national polls by about 9 or 10%. And our policy is detain and deport. And if that monster had been detained immediately upon illegal arrival into the United Kingdom, that poor child would not have been abducted and raped. That is the simple reality. And those who don't like our detain and deport, they are essentially saying they are willing to have blood and rape on their hands because they do not want to essentially detain these people about whom we know nothing, who come from countries with completely different cultures and values towards women, which many people would say, frankly, is medieval compared to our views and values. And it's just, it's a clear and present danger to the safety of British women and girls.
I obviously lack certain areas of intelligence. You've been in Parliament for 18 months. Explain to me, genuinely, man to man, how do politicians in government not look at that and go, this is absolutely deplorable? When I hear about human rights, it's really important that all humans have rights. What about this 12-year-old? Does nobody have the intelligence to go, forget upsetting some people, 2 kids stabbed overnight in a school, and a 13-year-old who allegedly shouted Ali Akbar being held on the suspicion of double murder. What the hell's happened to our country, Richard? Seriously, it infuriates me.
But they're all engineers and doctors.
No, they're not.
And architects, these people illegally breaking into our country. So surely we should give them human rights and give them everything. I mean, it is patently absurd, but that is what the loony left. They believe that everybody, that this sort of stuff, they actually believe it is acceptable collateral damage.
Imagine being the father of a kid who's raped. Just imagine the father of that 12. Because listen, people say, "Oh, you're too straight." I would do prison time if somebody did that to my daughter. Prison time.
Jeremy, get Zach Polanski on your show.
He won't come on.
Get any of the Greens on your show, or the loony left in the Labour Party, and see how they respond to this, and see how they answer the detain and deport, and you'll get a whole load of absolute garbage and twaddle. And yes, the horrific attack in a school yesterday in North London is just yet another incident, and it's horrific. The allegation is that that sort of terror cry was shouted as the children were being stabbed, and time will tell. But I think we need to know very quickly in that particular instance, for example, the background to the suspect.
So we've got
I suspect also we won't be, by the way.
No. So we've got a government, and I'm not excusing the Tories. We've got a government that's hamstrung by this weird view that everybody, even if they're a criminal, has more human rights than victims who lived in this country in the first place, and are also potentially, as we head towards May elections and potentially a general election, terrified of upsetting a certain sector or vote in this country so they daren't do something that might affect their own future. What does that tell you about the people that govern us? Jesus Christ, I understand the unfairness and the anger in this country by so many people, Richard, so many.
Well, it tells you that it's all about cowardice and kowtowing to people that they want to vote for them.
Yeah.
And I was very proud to jointly launch, along with Nigel and other Reform MPs, the Reform Jewish Alliance yesterday afternoon, and to stand up against the scourge of anti-Semitism, which is sadly is on the rise because of weak, feeble leadership, both at the head of the Metropolitan Police, weak leadership in the government. And, if you leave a vacuum, don't be surprised if bad people fill it. And that's essentially what's happened in this area. And it's just completely unacceptable. And I think the fury of the British people is so much greater than I think some of the people in the sort of upper echelons of the Labour Party realise.
Now, apparently you're such a busy man, as very busy, that to deign us with your presence is good. And we haven't got much longer, and I've got some very important questions at the end that perhaps aren't political, and I think you know what's coming. But before that, we wake up...
Is that the time?
Don't do that, Tice. We wake up to the news that our Prime Minister has lurched to the left in a lacklustre attempt to save his own political sin. He says it's utter nonsense to suggest that everybody gets a fair chance in life. I feel very strongly about this. Now, as he said that from his £12 million house and a knighthood in London. I've never heard him say anything like this before. And he went back to my cabinet's working class and all that. This is, without any shadow of a doubt, just an attempt to stave off the left, isn't it? I mean, nobody's buying it. And I don't know if you've seen the video. He stood in front of 3 people who they've had their brains removed. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Has he
I've
gone?
got the most working class cabinet in the history of this country sitting around my cabinet table. And I'm really proud of that.
Richard Tice? It's inspiring, wasn't it?
Wait, seriously. Well, at least, I mean, look, 3 people turned up to listen to him. I think he was facing the wrong way. Who knows how many of the press were in front of him? I mean, it just, he's desperately trying to cling on. Who knows how many days, weeks or months he's got left. But my prediction is that he's not the Prime Minister by the time of the summer holidays. And I think, frankly, the vast majority of the country would be delighted. The issue then is what comes next and how quickly that does or doesn't lead to a general election.
Couple of quick questions. I just had a really interesting chat with Kinsey Schofield. The Epstein scandal continues to mire everybody. I read this morning that Tony Blair's been dragged into it after civil servants have been told to search government correspondence as far back as Blair's government, away from politics into the royal family. There's an argument, there's an atmosphere and a rage engulfing, obviously, Andrew, and it's now turned its full force in the direction of the King and the royal family. How much did they know a cover-up? People are suggesting that the King might have to eventually, to save the monarchy, stand aside to sweep it with a clean blush for William. Have you got a view on that, my friend?
Well, I hadn't heard that, but the consequences of the Epstein scandal reverberates in so many different directions, and we all obviously know about Andrew. I think let's try and just be hopeful that the King and others in the royal family knew nothing, and I'm confident they are as horrified or more horrified, frankly, than any of the rest of us. It's actually impossible to imagine how hard it must be for the King and for Prince William, Kate, and the other, working members of the royal family. They're doing a great job. They're a huge asset to this country, and it's that they're working hard for this country, essentially with this sort of hanging over them, and it must be very, very distressing.
I just think, unfortunately, and we'll move on, but I just think that the clamour will grow, and I think he's in an impossible position. If he says nothing, people will shout cover up, and if he opens up, he's going to open up the monarchy to exposure like it's never had before. Let's leave light-heartedly, because you've only apparently got 2 more minutes. Kerry Bednock yesterday decided to serve burgers at McDonald's, a.k.a. Donald Trump in America, I thought. And she said that she was doing this because she was worried that our government, not my government, but anyway, are trying to stop first jobs. So, Richard Tice, show that you're a man of the people. What was your first job?
Actually, it was sorting the post in a post office mailing centre in Christmas, I think in the early 80s.
What, the 1880s, was that? Or the...
Well, yeah, I'm not quite as old as you, but maybe I am.
Dig in
but
there.
Anyway, that was my first job, and it was fantastic. I learned a lot. And the other great thing about if you're sort of doing a job like that, sorting post in the evening, it means you can't go to the pub and spend any money. So as a youngster, it was great. I was...
Well, not that you drank, Richard Tice, as a young man. You've had enough. And finally, I know he's going to go, but Ringgate continues. The lovely Isabel Oatsha on our show every single day. How are we doing? I've heard a little whisper that we're getting nearer to the Rock. Is that true?
I think progress is being made, Jeremy, and Ringgate will draw to a wonderful conclusion when we're able to display the result.
I've got to tell you, when we were working as the presenter on Monday at the Reform gig in Birmingham, this woman came up to me when you were on stage and went, she said, Jeremy, can I have a word? And I went, yes. She went, we've got a jeweller's down Handsworth. Tell our Richard if he'd like some percentage off for the ring, I can do him a deal. It was brilliant. Everywhere you go now, people are saying it to you, aren't they, Tice Man?
Absolutely, it's marvellous.
Listen, we appreciate it. We know you're busy. Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice, thank you very much indeed. 7:15. We are live across the UK. Karen, good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. When I heard about that 12-year-old girl who had been dragged off and raped and then had pictures taken of her, 12 years old, this is a baby. This is a girl that's just left primary school, playing in the park, enjoying her childhood. He's robbed her of that, and he's robbed her family of any sort of justice, because I just don't think if you can put this man away for 20 years, it's not going to take away the fact that he dragged her off and raped her and then took indecent images of her. That girl is going to be traumatised for the rest of her life. I am getting sick and tired of this Labour government virtual signalling to these depraved monsters, and that's what they are. I'm getting sick and tired of watching them boats come in.
So many people sharing what Karen says. I just sort of want to... I'm not even going to attempt to balance it. I think it is a disgrace, and I would lay this at any politician's feet, that if this... What Poppy said just keeps going around in my head. They see this as collateral damage, not as young girls whose lives are being blighted forever. We talk about human rights and all that. What about the human rights of these young girls? We talk about, is there a will to stop the infiltration of men illegally to our country? Why is there not a will? Then you come back to thinking about the grooming gangs inquiry. Why are politicians of whatever political party, and Boris, this is on you a lot as well, mate, genuinely with your Boris wave, why do politicians not have the moral compass to go, do you know what? Young girls shouldn't be raped, right? People shouldn't be stabbed to death just by going to school. Whether or not it upsets certain segments of society, we need to do something about it. Maureen in Stamford says, would these poor young girls that have been raped not have a case to take the government to court for exposing them to these vile invaders? Howard says, any decent leader would have the balls to ignore the international laws, knock some doors down, grab hold of these people, put them in handcuffs and remove them from this country as soon as possible. Simon in Nottingham, is our great leader going to explain to the girl's parents who were abused that he's sorry and he'll be doing something about it? Successive politicians haven't. You know, he stands up yesterday, Starmer, and talks about, I'm lurching to the left, I'm working class. Mate, listen, I'm not in comms or anything. Why don't you look a bit inward, look at how disastrous this country is, look at how young girls are being raped, and have the balls, man, to do something about it. This is Talk Breakfast. We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. My experience of television tells me that if I had a camera crew through the glass watching what goes on with the crew on this show, it would be extraordinary. Amongst all the misery, the rapist story, the government, just life in general, just a bit of fun. We have to do, you know, light and shade. As I say, Kemi Badenoch going to the McDonald's somewhere near Parliament yesterday and serving chips a bit like Trump, showing that she's a normal person, and also making the point, apparently, in her nice fitting outfit, that the Labour Party don't care about first jobs. So we just thought, a bit of fun. What was your first job? We've had a few already, a few dodgy ones. But Joe from Norwich, morning, Jez. And my first job at 16 was working nights at PTP, which is a photo processing plant, and we used to process all the porn photos from abroad. My weekly pay was £25. Great show. Keep exposing this despicable government. I mean, she doesn't say anything more about the porn, but I thought of something. Roger from Wales, is it? I don't know why I've done that. A lot of people of my age, my first job was on a milk round. I earned 50p, to which I gave to my mother as times were hard. She was so proud of me. I did lose her when I was 16, but it gives me a lovely memory of her face to this day. That's a beautiful story. Unlike this from Trevor. Morning, Jez. First job, mine was a fishmonger. It was my dad who pushed me into this because he always used to say, I've done that wrong. Oh, God! Should we going to do it? This is interesting from Trev. Morning, Jez. First job, mine was as a fishmonger. My dad pushed me into this. He always used to say, you shellfish boy! You see, honestly, I couldn't be a stand-up. I'd have to sit down. Tony's in Ash. Morning, JK. My first real job was a labourer on a building site, OK, in 1981, before I helped a coal man deliver coal. Oh, my God. What do you mean the bottom text? Morning, Jez. Oh, right. Jez, on this occasion, I'm going to have to remain anonymous. My first job in 1988, age 15, in prime-time video in Didsbury in Manchester. £1 an hour. Worst shift of my life. My primary school teacher came to the counter with, shall we say, a top-shelf title. Don't know who was more mortified, him or me. Can you imagine, like, just working in some video store, right, just minding your own business, right, and your teacher comes in and gets a porn video out. Wow. What a great moment to throw from that to my next guest, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, Nigel Evans. A very good morning.
And a very good morning to you, Jeremy. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it? Today's Prime Minister's question time, and I genuinely feel sorry for Kemi Badenoch because she's got so much stuff to go on. It's going to be difficult to work out, you know, where to start. It is. I've never seen anything like it. No wonder she went to McDonald's yesterday.
Well, now, let's start with that, Evans, because you're not getting away with this. You might have tried to just change the subject and be all serious. What was the legend that is Nigel Evans' first job?
Oh, no, easily a paper round, because my dad owned the paper shop. And then I worked on the milk, like one of your other callers just now. The milkman's name was Stan, so Stan the Milk. I did some work with him. But the big job was working at Barron's behind the bar. It used to be called the Townsman. Absolutely famous place. And so that was my first major job.
Good man. There's so much to talk about. The reason we've done that bit about jobs is because it's the whole goddamn thing is encompassing everybody in the news. Let's start with Starmer. Monday, Tuesday, people thought he was going. Patently has decided to dig in, still think he's a dead man walking. Yesterday he came back with this, it's an utter nonsense to suggest that everybody gets a fair chance in life. I feel very strongly about this. I'm talking working class. My cabinet is working class. None of us had heard any of this for ages. This is blatantly, tis it not, Nige, an attempt to cave in to the left, i.e. Miliband and Rayner, because he knows they're ready to oust him.
Yeah, I mean, he's had more resets than my iPhone. It's a stay of execution.
Yeah.
That's all it is. We all know that. And they're just waiting for their time. And just as we've had days of the Peter Mandelson fiasco and then Morgan McSweeney going on Sunday, now the attention will be switching to his appointment of a chap called Matt Doyle, who had been campaigning for somebody who was charged with child porn offences. I mean, And we've got the chair of the Labour Party saying that she was lied to during the vetting process. I mean, it's the same excuse that they're now, they used with Peter Mandelson as well. And is everybody is responsible apart from the man at the top? Where does the buck stop? Normally it stops with the person in number 10 or the president of the US, wherever. That's where the buck stops. Not in this case. I was laughing at the other major news story about this Norwegian bronze winner who poured his heart out that he cheated on his girlfriend. He actually thought, I'll sit there. I know, it's.
But if you're just tuning in, he's talking about a bloke who from nowhere won the bronze medal in the downhill skiing in the Winter Olympics. The most marvellous moment of his life, because nobody expected him to win. And he went on camera and went, they said, how do you feel? He went, well, 6 months ago I met the love of my life. But 3 months later I slept with one of her friends. What? Sorry, why did he do that?
Well, this is what I'm thinking, is that maybe this is what Keir needs to do. He needs to now sit in front of a camera and pour his heart out about how he's cheated on this, cheated on that. He's cheated on the nation. Let's be fair with the last general election manifesto. But at least he'd have that opportunity to say, I got it wrong there. I got it wrong on Mandelson. I got it wrong on Lord Doyle. I got it wrong on Morgan McSweeney. And now we've got the news, which is incredible again, that the head of the civil service, a guy called Sir Chris Wormald, has been sacked, or hasn't he been sacked? This is a 3-day sacking. Jeremy, we already know the person who's now going to take over from him, and yet he hasn't been officially sacked. I mean, what's going on? And this is the chap, by the way, who is in negotiation with the police about all the information that is going to be supplied from Her Majesty's government to them about the Mandelson files. I mean, it's an absolute shambles. It really is. It's appalling.
We sit here most days and we try and move the subject on, and we'll talk about the horrific Afghan rapists in a sec. But this story, whether it's Epstein, whether it's certain individuals, and today you raised the very good point about Matthew Doyle, who's, has to be kicked out over Mandelson links and also the links to a paedophile counsellor that he was supporting. It comes back again and again to the man you can see on screen, Keir Starmer, who has the ability to judge nothing, in my humble opinion. He gets it wrong after wrong. You can blame MI6 and MI5 and the police, and you can sack all these people, but the man can't make a decision that ever is correct, whether it's Doyle or Mandelson or Morgan McSweeney. And the question is, if Doyle goes, if Mandelson goes, if McSweeney goes, if Wormald goes, why isn't the bloody man who made those decisions, right, the man who appointed all these people, kicked out? Because he's hanging on, and we know why he's hanging on. He's only hanging on because it's like nobody wants it now, because they've got a by-election coming up, and then they've got the May council elections, and in May everybody thinks they're going to be utterly eviscerated. Who wants to take over at this point?
Yeah, I know, and it's Prime Minister's questions today. I mean, if you remember back to last Wednesday, Jeremy, when Kemi Badenoch basically kebabbed him well, I think the reason to answer your question directly, by the way, is because he's won every fight that he's ever been in. We know that. He told us that. But yeah, last Wednesday, number one, he said that all the Mandy files were going to have to go through the Cabinet Office. And then 3 hours later, he had to give in to Kemi Badenoch, and it's now going to go to the Intelligence Committee. And then she asked him, do you have faith in Morgan McSweeney? To which he said, absolutely central to my government. And 4 days later, he's on the phone to him saying, thanks, Morgan, bye. I mean, you just couldn't make it up.
Do you know what most of my viewers and listeners are waiting for Keir Starmer to come out and say, I have full confidence in myself, because that will mean he'll sack himself within about 24 bloody hours. Honestly, untenable. Saw it all yesterday with Streeting, and yeah, listen, it's just, people keep saying, why do you keep saying resignation watch? I'm surprised, and I'll be honest, that I thought he'd go before today. He is going. Julia will cover it seriously from 12 o'clock today. Where does he go? I mean, last week he went, yeah, I did know. I mean, completely giving him the worst week, and quite rightly so. And it only gets worse. One of the things that I would ask if I was Kemi Badenoch, and I would make this probably, weirdly, my number one question. There's a story today, Nigel, that shamelessly is not on the front of every newspaper, and well done to The Sun for highlighting it. An Afghan migrant has been found guilty of raping a 12-year-old schoolgirl just months after arriving in Britain. Ahmed Mullakil laughed as he raped, sexually assaulted and then took indecent pictures of the schoolgirl. It was in Nuneaton in Warwickshire. And get this, Nige, he only got to be identified by the police after he used his Home Office issued debit card, that's my money, your money, to buy the girl a drink after he'd raped her. I am sick to death of hearing politicians tell me, oh, it's this, it's that. Nobody in politics, it strikes me, in government, has got the balls to say my priorities are these poor English white girls who are being raped by people who shouldn't be in this country, who have a different view of the female race. It is, honestly, Nigel, I think it is beyond disgusting. I really do.
Well, I'm with you on this. And in fact, he shouldn't be in the country. He should never have been in the country. If we'd gone to the system whereby as soon as they enter the UK, they are then deported to a third country and processed there, then he would not have raped this 12-year-old girl. And on another point, I read that because of the seriousness of the crime, it means when he's released from prison, right, the fact that they're even talking about him being ever released, when he's released, he will then be deported.
Deport him now, then.
Yeah, I've got a good idea. Let's get in touch with the Afghan government, deport him to an Afghan jail, and pay for him to be jailed there for the rest of his life.
But OK, answer me this. You see, you've said something that's enraged me, and I'm not having a go with mates. Why should we pay? Why don't we just pick up that piece of crap, seriously, put it on a plane and send it back to where it came from? You ask any parent. I said it earlier and people go, oh, he's off on one. No, I'm not. That was my kid, Nige.
Yeah, I know.
To be honest,
the only reason I say it that way is because it costs thousands to put a prisoner per week in a prison in Britain. It'll probably cost 10 quid in Afghanistan. You can imagine the conditions in an Afghan jail, and we know the conditions in British jails, right? So you couldn't compare the two. I just want to make sure he's going to remain behind locked doors for the rest of his life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's appalling what he's done. I mean, it's probably one of the worst. And he'd only been here a few weeks.
I do think, and I know that your party, purported that the idea of Rwanda as being the answer. I do think we're getting to a point, and this isn't any... OK, reform talk about it, the Tories are starting to talk about it. You say the minute they get here. I think we've got to stop them coming here in the first place. And if that means the Navy in the Channel, if that means a crack team of Border Force officials going, do you know what? You are going straight to a detention centre that ain't the Ritz. If you've got the right to be here, come in. But the Boris wave proved that these are not doctors and anaesthetists and surgeons. They are scumbag criminals, many of them. I don't care what the left tell me, it's true. All those people on the left who go, yes, but what about the country they're escaping from? France. What about their women and children? No, they're all blokes. 90% are blokes, Darren Jones, get it right. And they're coming here with a different set of values. They don't speak our language. And more worryingly than anything, they are attacking young girls, and then they are, and this is the real crawl for many people, right? They are then on our money again, getting human rights lawyers like Keir Starmer and his mate Hermer to find some obscure reason why. What did I hear the other day? I can't go back to Afghanistan because they'll treat me badly. Tough! You just raped it. Honestly, I don't get it, Nigel. Up here, I don't get it in my head. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, absolutely right. And that's why I've said on your show on several occasions, when they get intercepted, and I'm 1,000% in favour of using the Royal Navy to protect our shores, they should be taken to a third country. I don't care which one. Trump has shown that you can negotiate with a number of countries who are more than happy for international development money to take people. Then we should be doing exactly the same. They're guilty of a crime of entering the United Kingdom illegally. They will then be fingerprinted, DNA tested, photographed. They will be banned from ever coming legally into the United Kingdom ever again.
Completely agree with you, mate. How's the book going?
It's stalled a bit, I'm afraid. It seems to me that Richard Tyson, his rock, is going to be announced way before my book, sadly. But hey, listen,
have you got writer's block? What have you got? Have you got the writing equivalent of constipation? Is that what it is?
It seems to be that way. But I know Isabel Oakeshott well as well, and Richard. So I'm just hoping for an invite. That's what I want. I want an invite to this big bash. It's going to be the bash of the century, isn't it?
I don't want to say the wrong thing, Nige, but I feel I'm going to. You haven't got one yet. See you later. Talk breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, Julia here from 10, covering, of course, what is bound to be an explosive Prime Minister's Question Time. He's on the rails, is Starmer. He's gone to left, apparently. He's all about the working class. Anybody I know from a working class background thinks he's the most deranged human being who doesn't care about working class people. 23 minutes to 8. Blexley in just a tick. This Afghan story won't go away. Michael, good morning.
It's Michael from North Staffordshire. Jez, I was talking to an asylum seeker who had been granted asylum. He said when in Afghan, with an Afghan passport, there are numerous countries around the world that they cannot fly to because they have an Afghan passport. Yeah, they come here and get granted citizenship, get given a British passport, and now they can fly anywhere in the rest of the world. So all that risk can now go to any country because they've got a British passport. How long is it going to be before the rest of the world wake up to the UK's stupidity in giving these risky people passports and start saying, well, do you know what? You've got a British passport. You're not welcome in this country. Just a thought, Jez. Great show. Keep it going.
Completely agree. I completely agree with Michael. And you know, people will say, oh, you're ranting. Oh, it's disgusting. Listen to Rob in Newcastle, my mate. To every left-wing person, or he says fool out there, put yourself in the position of a 12-year-old girl and her family. And just imagine dealing with her being raped by one of these animals. Their lives had changed forever. If we weren't being lied to about the real amount of crimes being committed by foreign nationals, our heads would explode. It's going to become normal. And imagine saying to your kids and the next generation, it's OK. We're just going to allow people to come in and groom you and attack you and kill you. And that's going to become normal. And for those who think that that's an outrageous suggestion, it's not. It's real. And it's like the people that jump up and down when there's marches. You know, these people coming from war-torn countries. I've seen plenty of reporters from different sides of the political spectrum stick a microphone to their mouth and go, would you like one in your house? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I rent my house. Oh, no, I don't have the rules. Yeah, precisely. Get out of your glass tower and have a look, because I think people are suffering and I think people are genuinely angry. My next guest is perfect. We've got migrants raping 12-year-old girls and the other big news story. I mean, it's absolutely frightening, this story. Front page of the Mail this morning. Look at that. Teen held, 13-year-old, for terror stabbing of boys 12 and 13 in class, for Christ's sake. In the middle of a world tour, but giving us some time. Thank you so much and good morning to Peter Blexley.
Good morning to you.
Oh, he's at home. Ooh, look at that. Peter, yeah, I hate it's always the fact that we've terrible things to talk about. Let's start with this Afghan migrant. I have to keep repeating this. Only identified by the police, Pete, after he used his Home Office issued debit card to buy the girl a drink after he'd raped her. And he's going to go to jail and stay in this country and we're going to pay for it. What the hell is wrong, pal?
Well, the sickening irony of yesterday and him being convicted was that it came on the same day that the lamentable Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, professed to love this country. Actually, if he loved this country, he would have invoked special measures by calling a state of emergency and stopping these rapists, these murderers, these people who otherwise contribute nothing to British society other than taking benefits and the such like. He would have stopped this. He would have come up with a solution. He's been in power long enough to do so now, but because of his human rights lawyer background, because he's captured by the far left ideology of the lunatic Labour Party, nothing has happened. Our daughters, our wives, our sisters, our cousins are all now in increasing danger because of the vermin that is washing up on our shores.
You know, people will tune and they go, what? But it's true. I don't understand, Pete, genuinely. We're both parents, right? I don't understand how anybody can sit there and be worried about the optics of whether I look like I've moved to the left or levelling up or whatever else green net zero rubbish when young English girls are being put in jeopardy and danger by men who are coming to this country for illegal reasons, who do not speak our language, who do not share our values. That is not racist, it is a fact. Look at that piece of scum right now on the television. And we give him a Home Office issued debit card. If it wasn't massively embarrassing, it would be, it's laughable, Pete. And we look at all of these things and we think, this is becoming the norm. Robin Newcastle's right. This is becoming the norm. I hate the fact that people aren't shocked. They should be absolutely repulsed by this.
Think of Rhiannon White. Think of the poor child raped in Leamington Spa, not so many miles from Nuneaton, not so long ago. Yet another illegal Afghan convicted of rape. Think of the damage that are being done to the daughters of this nation. Starmer and Hermer and the left-wing lunatics are prioritising this diversity over the daughters of this nation. It is utterly disgusting that this filth is being allowed to wash up on our shores and then go on to commit the most heinous of crimes, including rape and murder. Something should be done. They clearly have no conscience. They have no courage. They have no willingness to.
Well, you know, I think it's worse than that. I think it's worse than that, and I think you can ally this to what happened or what hasn't happened with the grooming gangs inquiry. I think we have politicians genuinely today who are making decisions based entirely on what section of society or the electorate they might upset if they're a little bit stronger than they are at this moment. I don't know how any male politician goes to sleep at night and is prepared to even begin to think that that poor girl is, what did somebody say to me earlier, collateral damage? I know what I'd do if that was my 12-year-old, and it shames me and it embarrasses me and says to me that the world must look at my country and think, what an absolute joke. The other story, of course, for you, teen held on terror stabbing of boys 12 and 13, allegedly yesterday. This was in Kingsbury High School in Brent, yesterday lunchtime. Witnesses claim the attacker shouted Allahu Akbar and then stabbed a 12 and 13-year-old both in the neck. They're fighting for their lives, and he, at 13, has been arrested on the suspicion of attempted murder. And we've got politicians, you know, jousting for Starmer's job, and we've got kids being stabbed at school at lunchtime. That didn't happen when we were kids.
Let's talk about Brent for a moment, if we may. That part of northwest London represented for decades by lunatic left Labour MPs, which is so often put up as a beacon of diversity, of integration. Utter codswallop. Nonsense. It's a fine example of how integration has failed. Yes, of course, those who came over, the Windrush generation, for example, many have gone on to be wonderful Brits who we idolise as sports stars, as beacons within the media, as absolute titans of industry and the such like. But this whole lunatic left push for diversity and then to call us all tolerant is utter nonsense. We have imported some of the most intolerant people on the planet onto our streets. And as long as we've got politicians that want to prioritise diversity over the daughters of this nation, this is simply going to get worse and worse.
How do they morally, in their heads, justify putting diversity, DEI or whatever you call it, ahead of the safety of kids? How does that rest with somebody? And by the way, Boris Johnson is going to get it as well. 1 million people. They weren't doctors and surgeons and anaesthetists. They were, I'm afraid, criminals, many of them, without any skills and no language, who have come here simply because we wipe their backside and give them benefits. How do these politicians think that this... Not publicly, how does it sit with them personally? Do they not care?
Well, the idiotic Boris Johnson let that wave of immigration in here because economists got in his ear and said this will create economic growth.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it didn't. It's done the exact opposite. So many figures released this week. 75% of these people washing up on our shores go on benefits and never contribute positively to the economy of this nation. So not only are they murdering and raping, they're fleecing us hand over fist, taking hard-earned taxes from the like of you, me, and your alarm clock wonderful audience. It's absolutely ridiculous. We need a new government. We need somebody who's going to come in here with the gumption, with the power, with the strength of character, and hopefully 2 terms of government, so that all of this can be stopped, reversed, and once again, the values of this nation, hello, good morning, please, thank you, manners, queuing, respect for the law, man-made law, and so much more can be reinforced, reintegrated into our youngsters so that we can have a semblance of this great nation that we all used to love and grew up in.
Couldn't agree anymore. Final thing for you, boss. Andrew Loney is on again later on the show. Wrote a book years ago about the fall of the House of York, and he made lots of accusations some years ago about the Duke of York, all of which have come back to home to roost with the disaster and the disgusting revelations of the Epstein saga. One of the things that's obvious, and I'm a royalist, I know you are as well, is that the pressure on the royal family is going to grow and grow, and whatever way that goes, goes. But he claimed yesterday that many institutions have covered up Andrew's behaviour, not only the royal family, he included the Met Police. What's your response to that, Pete?
Well, those who provide close protection to the royals very much pride themselves on their discretion because, of course, if you are by somebody's side almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, no matter who they be, His Majesty the King or any other member of the royal family, you will witness indiscretions. So, of course, these people pride themselves on keeping a vow of secrecy, for example. Ken Worf, Diana's former bodyguard, is about the only one that's ever broken cover from the close protection world and spilt beans, but he's always done that in a positive way. It is obviously, blatantly obvious now that some involved in close protection of the former Prince Andrew must know stuff. And it is about time that they break whatever vow of loyalty it is, step forward and tell the truth. The King has declared Buckingham Palace will do all it can to support police investigations. Well, those close protection officers who once protected the most abominable member of the royal family I think there has ever been, now is the time for them to step forward, speak up, tell the truth.
Are they culpable if they don't?
Most definitely. Misconduct in public office is an offence where doing nothing can be a criminal offence. So if they do nothing, if they keep a vow of silence, and if they know stuff, and there is sufficient evidence, then they could well find themselves having their collars felt.
We've missed you. How's the tour going, boy?
Wonderful, thank you. Swansea tonight, Exeter Thursday, Haffron in Powys, on Friday. Many, many more dates. There's some balcony tickets left for Leamington Spa on Sunday. They're great seats. Go to peterblexley.com and come and watch my fabulous show.
Let me tell you, I walked down to the kitchen to discover my mother-in-law had arrived again, and she's wandering around. She's only about 4'1", and she said to me, "You know that man that used to be a policeman?" And I went, "Yeah, Blexley." She said, "We love him. Is he coming? Is he coming to Woking?" I said, "I've no idea. Go online. I haven't got a computer." She said, "Anyway, if he is, can you get me 2 free tickets?"
Well, I was in Woking on Sunday, an absolutely wonderful audience. We had a great time. The laughter, of course, the very seriousness of much of the subject material combined for a show that they clearly enjoyed, judging by their reactions.
Did you go to Pizza Express in Woking afterwards?
No, I certainly didn't, and I didn't sweat.
Good boy, lovely to see you, the legend that is Peter Blexley, 10 to 8. We're live across the UK. So much you're waking up to. Keir Starmer's lurched to the left. Let's go to college. Are we going to the? We're going outside. This is the bravery of the Tory party. Richard Holden, Shadow Transport Secretary. Very good morning without the coat. How are you, Richard?
Good morning. Yeah, not too bad. It's actually, it's not too chilly out here this morning.
Good man. Listen, transport is one thing. The news, the cycle of news is not going anywhere, as I'm sure you're aware. Let's start with Keir Starmer. Yesterday, in a desperate attempt to cling on, he spoke to 3 people on camera, all of whom looked like they were asleep. He pitched himself as the working-class Prime Minister with a working-class cabinet, and he said, "It's utter nonsense to suggest that everybody gets a fair chance in life." I feel very strongly about this. We would question that he has only just started to say this because he's worried that the left are going to take his crown. What's the Tory view on this?
Well, I think it's pretty clear, this is going back to the sort of attempt to try and rally the Labour faithful to his cause as he faces absolutely immense pressure. You can see it right across the front pages today. His allies even telling the Financial Times this morning that he hasn't got the power to even sack members of his own cabinet, which is an unbelievable position. What we've now got is a Prime Minister in office but not in power, and the Labour guys, they're going to leave him there to take the heat for this by-election they're going to lose. They're leaving him there to take the heat for the local elections, and also because people like Angela Rayner's still got this HMRC investigation ongoing. Wes Streeting, all these texts with Mandelson, clearly wants all of that to go away. So they're going to allow a few months to pass, allow the country to be kept in this ridiculous situation with higher taxes like business rates, national insurance going up through the roof, with Rachel Reeves still there as Chancellor. That's all going to be, we're going to have to live with that because the Labour Party hasn't got the bottle to act, and some of the people are trying to play for position for what is definitely going to be a Labour leadership election in the next few months.
Do you not think that you, as a respectable Tory, should perhaps give some advice to the Labour Party on how to change leaders? Because you lot did it that often. You've probably got a blueprint that works, haven't you?
Well, look, when it comes down to it, when things went wrong, the Conservative MPs did act. I just wish the Labour Party would do the same. I have actually spoken to a couple of Labour MPs and basically said, look, guys, in the interest of the country, you guys have got to act now. You cannot allow this situation to go on. If we end up waiting till May and then have some drawn-out Labour leadership contest, it could be 7 or 8 months without a Prime Minister.
And you make a really good point.
Any power.
You make a really good point, because whilst that's going on, all joking aside, this country is, sliding towards, I don't know what. I want to tell you about the main news story of the day. I'm sure that there are other stories, but this should be on the front of every paper. The Afghan migrant found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl, jailed yesterday in Nuneaton, Warwickshire. He laughed, raped her, took pictures and was only identified, Richard Holden, after the police used his Home Office issue debit card he used to buy a drink for the girl after he'd raped her. I'm telling your party, I'm telling every party, and I mean this. This is not only unacceptable, but millions of people in this country are at the end of their tether. I know you're going to tell me about Rwanda. I know that Starmer's going to talk about boats. These people have to be deported from our country and stop coming. Not coming and then... Something has to happen, Richard, because people are naturally up in arms, man. Definitely.
Yeah, no, and there's so many of these cases now, constantly happening, and this is because we aren't deporting people. Look, anybody who comes here illegally shouldn't be able to stay. That's why Kemi's been really clear, we've got to get out the ECHR. If these people are coming here and they're not prepared to stick by the rules, then they've just got to go as well. So even if they come here legally and they do something wrong, they've got to go.
But why can't we as a country, Richard, why can't we as a country, with all of our history and apparent talent, why can't we come up with a system that means they don't even get here in the first place before they take advantage of benefits or disappear into the system? Have we not got the ability, internationally, politically, in whichever way, to somehow stop people coming who are attacking our kids and spending our money, mate, if we're being honest?
Yeah, no, I think we do. We've got to. The only way we can do that is getting out of the ECHR. We cannot have the lawyers basically ruling what the British people want, and that is why Kemi's been really clear. We've now got to get out the European Convention on Human Rights. We cannot allow foreign judges to decide who's allowed to stay in this country and who goes. It's going to be down to the British people to decide that, and that's why we've got a really strong policy in this area. Because you're absolutely right. Cases like this make everybody's blood boil, and it's not just cases like this, it's also the everyday that people see people swinging the lead, coming here, taking benefits. All those migrant hotels we're seeing in places just up the road from my constituency in Basel and Billericay, just up the road in Epping, we've got that hotel still there causing real issues in the local community. People are fed up and they want something done about it. Genuinely, Kemi is a lady with a real fire in her belly. She took the fight to the government over grooming gangs. That's why that inquiry is happening now. And I think she's also got the fire to take the fight to the Labour Party and to the country to get us out of the ECHR as well.
Very quickly, a couple of questions. PMQs will be fun today, I imagine. I'm looking forward to her skewing him again. I'm surprised he's even there. Your leader yesterday went to McDonald's and served some fries and burgers and talked about first jobs. And everybody this morning has to tell us what their first job was, Richard Holden. What was yours?
Mine was, I waited tables as a first job, and you know what? I was so shy as a 16, 17-year-old when I went to go and try and get the job application that I made my first girlfriend go in and get the actual application form for me. But you know what? It was the best thing for me. It really transformed my ability to sort of speak to people, to get out there, and I think first jobs are so important. It's one of the things which is really worrying me about our high streets at the moment, is that you know, we're seeing first jobs stopping being offered because of those big increases in business rates, big increases in national insurance. So those little jobs in cafes and restaurants like I did, they're just not there in the same way anymore.
Richard Holden, I completely agree. I have to cut you off, not because I want to, but because I have to. We thank you very much indeed. This is Talk Breakfast.
Morning, Jezza. It's Kate from Leeds. Seriously, do you think Afghanistan jails would jail these people for raping our English white girls? I seriously don't think so, because they'd be seen as martyrs. Let's face it, let's face the truth, but they'd be seen as martyrs. White girls over here are seen as trash to these people. And I'm just absolutely appalled at this government for letting all these animals into the country. Anyway, you most probably won't play it, so there you go. Thank you. Bye.
We're left with a bunch of no-hoper, absolutely brain-addled incompetence totally out of touch with the British public, but also totally, utterly lacking common sense when it and a sense of reality when it comes to where the economy is. You can't just keep getting another payday loan to pay for the last payday loan's interest payments. We are going to have to accept that at some point, and you think we're in hair shirt territory now? You ain't seen nothing yet.
We reject, we reject. We reject, we reject.
Behind me is the highly controversial location for the proposed super embassy. Tuesday is the deadline. Yes, this would be the biggest embassy in Europe if approved, if Starmer bows down to Beijing, as these protesters are saying. Behind me you can see nobody wants this.
No repression at borders.
We know that we have to stand up to the abuses of China. And what worries me is that we have a government right now that seems to be scared of China.
What are you doing here at the protest? That's an interesting sign you've got there. Clearly you're not a fan of our Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Why is that?
It's kowtowing to the Chinese government, right? A dictator regime.
Robert Jenrick defected to Reform yesterday. He called the Conservative Party and Kemi Badenoch a leader with no backbone. She's obviously shown up here today and done a speech. It's kind of unprecedented to have that sort of flagrant support. What did you think about her speech and her backing this?
I think any party backing our cause, like going against the building of the embassy, I'd say we welcome them.
Why are you here today?
So I'm Tibetan and I'm here to oppose the Chinese mega embassy being built here. Unfortunately, we think the UK government might allow this to happen, and I think it sends the wrong message to people who have been oppressed by the Chinese government, who are still being continuously oppressed in free countries. There are lots of Chinese decisions which are being followed by Chinese police states.
Now, we know that there are plainclothes Chinese policemen potentially in the crowd, so a lot of them want to stay anonymous, which is very understandable. Why are you here today?
Because it's very simple. It's no mega embassy, and it is absolutely unacceptable because this is a very peak area, and I don't think any one of the country they will have choose one of the peak area, prime area, and make it to their one of the I think it's the biggest embassy in Europe. So this is absolutely unacceptable.
This government is engaging with China confidently.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, my friends. Just gone 8 o'clock. It is Wednesday morning. It's a wet Wednesday across the UK, and Talk doing its stuff, the home of common sense, and of course the home of the alarm clock Brit. People have their say on the news of the day. It's down to you, my friends, as ever. Voice notes and calls to 0344 499 1000, and your text messages 87222. You're waking up to yet more from dodgy Starmer, the man who is hanging on by his fingertips in Downing Street. His entire party, I think, just waiting, really, for the next, disaster. I suspect they'll wait till May. I've said it again and again. The polling will say that he's going to be eviscerated in May, and frankly, why would you want the job before that? But they're all plotting. And my question is this. Well, what was it yesterday? He was going, I want to talk about working people. I want to talk about opportunity. Well, you've never talked about that before, have you? You haven't at all. You're doing it because you're trying to stave off what's going on the left, which is Rayner trying to pay off her tax before she launches a website that doesn't exist. Streeting, sort of trying to work out whether he's messed up completely. And Ed Miliband, the most frightening thought of all, we haven't really heard from. All of that, and this country's on its backside. And I'll give you a reason, something that's really, really upset people this morning, and I am as much a part of that as anybody. The Afghan migrant story. If you are just waking up or you're just tuning in, this is genuinely a snapshot of the United Kingdom in 2026. Yesterday, an Afghan migrant by the name of Ahmed Mullakil was found guilty of raping a 12-year-old schoolgirl just months after arriving in Britain illegally. He laughed as he raped her, laughed as he sexually assaulted her, and took photos. But perhaps, well, that's galling enough for me to go and find him and deport him. No. They only discovered him, the police peeps, right? This is the worst thing. After he used his home office-based debit card they gave him. Thanks for coming to our country leader. You have a debit card to buy the girl a drink after he'd raped her. Morning, Daniel.
Good morning, Jezza. It's Daniel from Epsom here. Every single day I look at the news. So yesterday there was an Afghan migrant who raped a young girl. Then in the news today there's been a stabbing, an incident at a school. It's a daily occurrence. Native British people, this government's first duty is the protection of British people, and they're reneging on that duty. This is desperate. The King should intervene. People are just getting sexually assaulted and raped and attacked every day, and no one's lifting a finger.
And here's the thing I want to say to everybody, and I'd love your take on this, 0344 499 1000. If you say that to a certain section of our society, they will say to you, no, come on, these people, this is racist, this is fascistic, what you're saying, this is wrong, these people have come from war-torn countries, right, and it's not fair, it's all about human rights. Well, I'm going to say this, right, they come from foreign countries illegally, they don't speak our language, and they do not have the same view and value about women. That is a fact. And until this country can cut the rubbish and face up to the fact that this is happening, yeah, we can look at America and people criticise quite rightly ICE. But these people need to be detained and they need to be deported. And if our political classes have not got the will or the, I don't know, gumption to come up with a plan, it is desperate. It is fundamentally wrong. And I don't get into trouble, but that was my kid. Genuinely telling you, I do time. And I ain't apologising to anybody. Let's say a very good morning to a man who, former Conservative Party leader, love this man, love his view on everything. He's far calmer than me. And Sir Ian Duncan Smith, good morning, how are you?
Good morning, Good morning.
It's just, before I talk about Starmer, I've got to talk about this Afghan rapist. Ian, I don't think politicians understand the depth of desperation, repulsion and anger that is growing in this country on a daily basis.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. And I think the key issue here is what you do about it. And the thing you do about it is to deport people who have come illegally. And the only way to get that done now, as we've seen endlessly trying to get this done, but being stymied by the courts, is that we have to come out of the Convention of Human Rights, the European Convention, make our own laws on this, but allow a government elected to do that, to deport people and resuscitate plans like the Rwanda plan to get them out. And that's what the US is doing. In fact, the US began to send people to Rwanda after we had failed to carry through. So the reality is that's what we've got to do. We should get on with it now. It should be an emergency piece of legislation. And it could be done long before the summer, and we could be deporting people in their significant numbers.
In terms of your experience, former Conservative Party member, MP for many, many years, try and explain to me and my listeners in layman's terms, why had... The Tories now say leave the ECHR. Nigel Farage is saying leave the ECHR. People will throw at me questions like, oh, it's too difficult legally. Why the hell 15, 20 years ago? Why did Boris allow 1 million? Why the hell does there seem to not be, Ian, in basic terms, the political will for grown politicians to look at the fact that 12-year-old girls are being sexually assaulted and not have that at the forefront of their minds? Forget political posturing and human rights. This is, as Daniel said, and I'm careful with my language, but the indigenous population are saying to us in their droves, we're scared for our kids.
Well, the honest truth is because British politicians didn't want to take the big decision. The big decision is to say, look, this is blocking us from doing what is right by the British people. The greatest and most important thing that a government has to do is defence of the realm. And this is part of that process. And so we need to be able to say to them categorically that this is so serious that we have to now take that strong action. We should have taken it before to get this through, but the reality is a politician has to recognise that the public are absolutely sick and tired of this. We're all sick and tired of it. We cannot be held to ransom by groups of people who come here illegally and their lawyers. And it's these really ridiculous laws defending the idea that the UK can make its own decision on this. America makes its own decisions on this. We should be able to make our own decisions. And by the way, we're not alone. If you go to Italy, if you go to France now, if you go to any of these other countries in Europe, all facing terrible levels of illegal migration, they're all asking for the same thing now. So we should get on with it and do it. This thing was not fit for purpose. It came through at the end of the Second World War for a different type of problem, and it now needs to be completely changed, and we need to get out to have our own law.
Couldn't agree more. Let's bring it back to politics. The Afghan migrant story is not going to go away, and you, more than anybody, would understand how people are feeling. We haven't spoken for a week. What an extraordinary few days it's been. On Monday, I would have placed a bet that he was gone by the end of the day, Keir Starmer. The vultures were circling. Then there was a sort of abortive coup led by Samwar in Scotland that didn't materialise. Then we woke up to the unedifying sight of Wes Streeting almost crying yesterday on Sky as his messages with kiss, kiss, kiss to Mandelson were released. Yesterday, Starmer then pitched up in front of 3 people, that's all that we're watching, it seems, in a shirt, where he said, "It's utter nonsense to suggest that everybody gets a fair chance in life. I feel very strongly about this. I've got the most working-class cabinet in the history of the world, and that's what I'm now concerned about." Now, interestingly, the cynics will say, well, we haven't heard anything about that, and surely this is nothing more than you launching a class war and lurching to the left because you're terrified about who's going to stab you between the shoulder blades, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the truth for Starmer is he's being held now to ransom by the left. The reality is he's losing voters hugely, as I understand it, to parties like the Greens and others on the left of him. That's what's panicking many of his members of Parliament. And I'm afraid what we're going to see now is a drift, significant drift, to the left in some hope of hanging on. The fact is that the Labour Party genuinely has, you talk to any Labour MP, they will tell you that Starmer's time is due. He's got very little time left. What they're doing is they're staying off that decision till after the by-election and even maybe the May elections, but they expect those to be really, really bad. And the result of all of that is that they will then be able to say, well, that's it. We can blame you, rather than having to go through that after they've elected somebody new. And the cabinet themselves, I mean, it's very funny, I find, when the cabinet, who have been constantly campaigning against him, I mean, on this show, elsewhere, half-truths, lots of briefings to media behind it, every one of them getting themselves thrust forward to do what they have to do eventually, but then chickening out at the last moment and then signing this ridiculous statement which they put up on Twitter or something, or X, saying how much they support the Prime Minister. And when he refers to the most working class cabinet there's ever been, first of all, that's not true. And secondly, he cannot define what a working class is. He's been asked that time and time again. I've listened to this show, I've listened to Nick Ferrari, pounding him whenever he comes on. What is working class? Who is working class? Are you working class? How do you define working class? All he comes up with working people. Well, we already know that the vast majority of people in Britain who are decent and straight want to work and do their level best to work. But that doesn't make you, according to his term, working class. And he can't tell you what it's all about. And then he claims his father was a toolmaker. Great, but a toolmaker was a very, very well-trained and quite rightly often big salaries, because, of course, they are the ones that reset the industry every now and then when they need to. So they're very skilled individuals. But he wants to leap on this term working class, and he can't define what it is. And that's
Ian, I don't want to jump in. He couldn't even define what a bloody woman was. I stood in a studio when Piers Morgan interviewed him a year or so ago, and he asked him 9 times what a woman was, and Starmer couldn't answer it. That's a fact.
Yeah, so that is the reality. I remember that exactly, quite right. And, since then, the courts have had to define that. And we've still got campaigns going against this, but there were those nurses quite recently who won their case.
Yeah.
And they'd been treated abominably by the health service. So all of the institutions of government are out of control at times, and we need to put this right. And it needs a strong leader to do that, and we haven't got one. I'm sorry for him if that's the case, but that is the case. And the Labour government, the Labour Party, has got to figure out what they want to do. And if all they're going to do is hang on to somebody for fear of something worse, that lovely poem, then we're in real trouble. We're already in trouble. It's going to get a lot worse.
And I think that's the really important point, because, you've got a country that is really, really struggling OK, really, really struggling. And there's a lot of unfairness felt amongst the British people. And we're just watching politicians, you know, circling the wagons and trying to make sure that they think about their own ends. And that causes even more anger. Can I ask you also, obviously the big news story that will go nowhere is this ever increasing horror that is the Epstein case. Politically, of course, Mandelson, it brought down him. McSweeney, the communications director, the wormhole, the cabinet secretary, and all but name has gone. You made a point about the cabinet falling in behind Starmer the other day. I want to ask you this. If Starmer has to go because he appointed Mandelson, who was the best friends with one of the world's worst paedophiles, then are not the 24 cabinet ministers who have rode in behind the Prime Minister as culpable as well? They've shown their support for a decision that everybody knows was, frankly, unbelievably wrong.
I was in a debate the other day about this, and they came out, the government came forward, I think it was on Monday, the government came forward with a plan for new legislation to tighten up the institutions, you know, all of this stuff. It was all had to be done so that we didn't ever have this process again, to require people to declare this and declare that. And I got up and I said, you're in the middle of a crisis. You've got you've got a government that is full of indecision. Starmer himself has made major mistakes and decided to appoint somebody despite the fact that it was known how terrible they really were behind the scenes. And you come forward with this load of rubbish that's not what the issue's all about. And I said, this is just smoke. You're puffing smoke at all the people in Parliament. You're puffing smoke at the British people, trying to hide the fact that the decision that Starmer made is his decision, and he must stand by it. Meanwhile, others are falling on their swords. The guys that advise him, there are two that have gone already. So the question then we rose is, well, what about the third one that advised him to appoint Mandelson? And that is Jonathan Powell. And yeah. Jonathan Powell is still sitting in government, despite the fact that he, as much as McSweeney, if that's the reason for going, McSweeney had to go rather than Starmer, well, then Jonathan Powell's got to go. And then at the end of that, who took the decision? And that's the key bit. You took the decision. You took the decision, Keir Starmer, against any common sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I was arguing this long before, because you didn't even need to know about the Epstein stuff to know this man should never be in government again. He'd been sacked twice for impropriety in public office. He then was caught on this man Deripaska's yacht during the time when he was EU Commissioner, and they were negotiating increased taxes, etc., to aluminium producers, and Deripaska, that oligarch from Russia, was an aluminium producer. So, you know, all this stuff, he has zero judgment. So he should never have been appointed. But you appointed him. If the others have to go, then Jonathan Powell should go. And then, by the way, you should go, because you made the decision.
I read this morning, I completely agree, by the way, that the investigation into Mandelson's Epstein links is going to go back to the Blair era, for God's sake. Powell ensconced in that, and Mandelson and everything. This has engulfed many people. I just want to ask you some specific questions. Does Peter Mandelson go to prison, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith?
Well, the issue that I think is here to answer that question is what he did while he was in government. Did he attempt to leak government information to somebody outside when this is classified? And secondly, did he attempt to change government legislation as a result of his relationship with Mandelson? If he did, and there seems to be evidence now that he did during Blair's time, and if so, then that is an offence. And I'm sure the police will want, therefore, to deal with that, and he should be prosecuted. I'm afraid that is the crime that he would be guilty of. I don't have the evidence of everything else. There may be other issues too, other things that he's tried to do. But this much we do know, because that's been in the media. And that seems to me to be enough for a full investigation.
And there's no better word to use, so I apologise, because I respect you. If he does go down, do you think he'll squeal, and others that are equally palpable that we don't know about, or, you know, involved in this revolting saga? Do you think he'll squeal? I do.
Well, he may well do. I mean, if he does, and there are others, then this whole thing unravels. It's bad enough at the moment, but if I mean, he may want to try and get some kind of plea arrangement if that's the case. I don't know. That's something I, speculate about. But the reality is, if it's true what has been printed in the papers, and if it is a reality that Peter Mandelson tried to change government policy and/or to engage the Prime Minister, whether knowingly or unknowingly, about this individual, then that is, in my book, an offence. And I think, therefore, he'll have to be seeing the inside of a court for that.
I just want to ask you quickly, before I ask you about the Royals, I've had this in from Russ in Leeds. Could you please ask Sir Ian why Poland can seemingly secure its borders and not accept anybody from European migration policy? How has Italy reduced its illegal migration by 60%? How has Denmark got the toughest policies in Europe? And now why is Germany starting to say they will remove people from the country? We always seem to blame the ECHR.
Well, the reality is, it's at the end of the day, he's quite right. It's our lawyers that use the ECHR to stop this. It's our judges that have been making these decisions. He's quite right. Ultimately, it comes down to our courts. We should make those decisions. But every time anyone has tried to be deported, they plea their rights, like the right to family life under the ECHR, and then our judges give them a stay of execution and they stay here. The reality is, I'm absolutely right, to be fully frank with him. The truth is, we have to get out of this. We have to get out of this. And by the way, we're not the only ones, because honestly, you mentioned a number of countries in Europe. They're all facing many of these same problems, getting judgments against them as a result of the ECHR. But we have to go. We have to have our own law.
But I interviewed Maloney's right-hand person the other day. She has managed to reduce migration, illegal migration in Italy by 60%. And you look at that, this is purely surface-based comment, and you think there's more will in that woman to do that than I've seen in any politician in this country for years. And I wonder if it does come down to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'm an admirer of hers. I think she's shone a light onto the mess that Europe is in as well. There's a row, though, it has to be reminded ourselves. There's a row going on, I believe, between France and Italy over the fact that Italy's been kicking their migrants out, and France has had to be taking a load of them. So there's a big row going on about that. What's going on in Europe is a reality. We have faced this for probably longer than many of them have, but the truth is right now that the answer to this is very simple, I think. If you arrive on these shores illegally, then you should be deported within a matter of 2 days. 1, to get you to the place for deportation. 2, to check all your documents. And 3, to enjoy the flight back to wherever, or even worse than that, to a place that's further away. Because once you start doing this, and I remember when we came up with this, illegal migrants started heading for Ireland.
Yeah.
In their thousands.
I just think we're going to...
Because they thought they were all going to go. And as soon as you know that, they'll stop paying for it.
Of course they will, but I also think there's got to be a way that we can stop them from coming in the first place. On a light-hearted note to finish, my dear friend, and we love having you on, your leader, Sir Kemi Bennett, yesterday went to McDonald's, which I thought was rather similar to what Trump had done, but there she is, packing up the fries and the burgers. She was talking about first jobs. I like the headline, Muck Badnock. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, known for a laugh. What was your first job, sir?
My first job was a waiter. In Italy, when I was out there, I'd been studying the language, and I went out and worked. I had to work because I had no other way of paying for it. I was so bad at the waiting job that I ended up washing dishes at the back. And I have to say that it was hard work. We didn't get paid very much, but I have to tell you, it was a lot of fun.
I bet it was, for all sorts of reasons. We love having you on IDS. Thank you so much indeed, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, former Conservative leader. 8:23, we're live across the UK in a tick. Ross Clark from The Sun, great column on page 10. These stories that you're waking up to. Starmer lurches to the left to save his own skin. The Afghan migrant who raped the 12-year-old girl and was only found because his Home Office issued debit card showed that he bought a drink for her after he raped her. Welcome to the United Kingdom in 2026. Morning, Perry.
Morning, Jeremy. What really sickens me is the fact that all these lefties call ordinary working people like me, I'm born and bred here, got 3 boys, 2 of them are going out with non-British girls. I'm far from being a Nazi. When they call people like me a Nazi, an ordinary British person, call me a Nazi. These lefties should be made to sit down and watch some documentaries about what a Nazi really is and what they used to do to people. By calling anyone a Nazi just because you don't agree with them politically, you're watering down the meaning of Nazis and what they actually did.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:26. Julia here from 10 o'clock. And don't forget, Prime Minister's question time. The first time Starmer will have stuck his head above the parapet since he was, well, seen to be hanging on for dear life. That will be box office. Hello, Pete. The problem is it never ends for the poor young rape victims, does it? There are consequences that will affect them for life, whilst most illegal migrants grab a human rights law and get away with it. Dave says Starmer didn't even know what a woman is until the Supreme Court made their ruling, although I'm still not sure whether he's understood it fully. So how does he know what it is to be working class? Alan in Middlesbrough, great point. Morning, Jez. 12-year-olds being raped by migrants and kids being stabbed in school. Meanwhile, our legacy media switch off replies on X to such incidents. Why? And Labour only talk about breakfast clubs. And HMRC want more tax. God, I'm depressed. Hello to Stephen from Wolverhampton. All right, mate. Black country. I can't for the life of me understand, this is true, why all the front bench in Parliament are up in arms about the rape of young girls. Me exactly, mate. It's exactly how I feel. I don't understand it. Boz, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Travelling Boz here. Every case we hear of, every day, the papers are not reporting anything at all. It's not on the news, local channels, nothing. I'm glad Talk are bringing it up. But every time there's a case of rape, assault, attacks by these people who shouldn't even be in the country, they're illegal. Remember the word illegal. You cannot go to a country without a passport. They wouldn't let you in. These people are coming in with nothing and being let in and set up for expenses and everything they do. It should just be reported. That's all I'm saying. Getting angry talking about it. Hidden in the page 28. It shouldn't front page and the first thing on the news channel like you do. Let's get this sorted.
Couldn't agree more. Stephen Ipswich. I've just looked on the Home Office website, and Afghanistan, Eritrea, Somalia, DAC and Pakistan all have travel bans because they're too dangerous. Yet the same Home Office allows illegal migrants from some of these countries to live in our communities. Tell me how that makes any sense. Good morning to Linda in Deal in Kent. Morning, Linda. Jez, she says, why does the government not call a state of emergency and stop what I am prepared to call an invasion? They should just ignore the ECHR. Europe will be upset. Tough. This lot would rather ruin this country than upset anybody. I'm so with you. Joe Hanlon, Shrewsbury, regarding the use of the ECHR. Is it only for immigrants, or can the British people use it to enforce our human rights, such as the violation of our women and children, the after effect of which affect family life forever and therefore defy the right to a decent, family, law-abiding life. And this from Ian Grant. Message to Keir Starmer. Good morning, Keir. Glad you're now working class. How about you now start looking after the working class girls that have been raped by the gangs of people that you don't want to upset? Really strong on this morning, you lot. 0344 499 1000 is for your voice notes and calls. Text to 87222. It's 8:30. Let's go now to the Sun columnist, page 10. Great article by Ross Clark this morning. Britain is being dragged into a socialist future it never asked for. Good morning, Ross. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Fine.
It's interesting. Just to the next side of your article, it says, Sir Keir Starmer may have won the battle to stay in Downing Street for now, but at what price for the rest of us? It says that Labour has already strayed a very long way from the PM's election promise to govern from the centre ground and tread more lightly on the lives of hard-working Brits. And the future, if he goes, well, not if, when he goes, is even worse, isn't it, Ross?
It is indeed, and when we voted, or when the country voted Labour, not very enthusiastically, on 34% of the vote, but when the country voted Labour in 2024, it was in the belief, in many cases, I think, that this was going to be a sort of another Blairite government, which wasn't going to, well, for all its faults, the Blair government didn't tax us to extinction, it didn't frighten businesses, it allowed economic growth, it didn't punish aspiration. But, having gained power, then, the nature of the government began to change almost immediately, but nothing like what it is going to from now on, because Starmer may have survived in office for now, but he is the prisoner of his backbenchers. And these are the backbenchers that get more left-wing by the day, who wouldn't allow him to reform, even to chop £5 billion from the welfare bill. They've sort of blocked everything, demanding wealth taxes, and so on, pretending that borrowing doesn't matter, we can just carry on borrowing like nobody's business. And honestly, you just see how the markets behaved on Monday when it looked as if Starmer was going to be forced to resign. Bond yields have leapt. I think the markets are beginning to realise that, what follows Starmer would be, far worse than a sort of Liz Truss mini budget. It would completely lose all control of the public finances. We've already paying over £100 billion a year in debt interest, and we've got a government which looks as if it could now be taking the spending, the all limits off the spending taps, letting them run, and I
haven't actually said this yet. I agree with everything you said. I haven't actually said this because it's only just come into my mind, but I do genuinely believe this. Starmer is awful. And I don't actually go with I go with the facts that it would be worse. Two things I want to say. First is that anybody who has got any idea of political history must have realised that the Socialist Party, whenever they're in power, however they dress it up, we end up skint. That's it. They either print money or give their union mates money so that interest rates go through the roof. It always ends up that way. He will undoubtedly lurch to the left because he's trying to save his skin. He can't save his skin. And what you will get, as you quite rightly say, is either a Miliband, which is frightening, isn't it? Or Rayner, which is frightening, isn't it? The only reason I've got hope, Ross, is for the very reason of what you just said. The markets collapsed in with Truss. An election was forged, and I think that if he is ousted and there is mad left-wing madness in this world, in this country, I think the markets will spook again, and that might well be the time and the reason that we get an early general election. I've thought that for quite a while, to be fair.
Yeah, well, the trouble is we didn't get an election straight after Liz Truss, of course. We had,
no, good point.
She fell, but we had Rishi Sunak, and the Tories remained in power for the best part of 2 years. In Labour's case, they've got this massive majority, 170 majority. Now, that is not going to whittle away any time soon. So that there is no sort of mechanism by which we could, we could be deep in a national crisis, but there's no mechanism which is going to force an early election unless the majority of Labour MPs, rebelled against their own party. But,
why would you do that if it ends your job 3 years early?
Yeah, well, exactly. And they know they're going to be out of a job come the next election. They're not going to be the turkeys voting for Christmas, are they?
No. Listen, it's a great article. We love having you on. Britain is being dragged into a... But I should ask you, actually, two things. Who do you think will succeed him, in your knowledge?
Well, I mean, the one that seems to be most likely at the moment is Angela Rayner. But I think when it comes to it, even Labour members will surely balk at the idea of appointing a Labour leader and Prime Minister who's, just resigned in disgrace about 6 months ago, less than 6 months ago. And I think, the manner of her resignation with her little stamp duty difficulty, it is so similar, isn't it, to Mandelson's first resignation back in 1998 over the dodgy mortgage application. I think, the party will balk probably.
I don't think they will.
May well end up with Miliband.
I think the unions will love the fact that the poster girl of the unions has a chance, and you can imagine. Can you imagine a European convention with a bottle of Leaf Milk and a vape? It'll be brilliant, won't it? We love having you on. We love your article, Ross King, page 10 today of The Sun. PM may be bad, but Clark, but worse still to come. Britain is being dragged into a socialist future it never asked for. Sorry to Ross Clark. Ross King's the entertainment person on ITV. I'm just like the old times. 25 to 9. Back in a minute.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. On the way, Andrew Loney, who wrote that amazing book entitled The Fall of the House of York. He's had opinions about Prince Andrew, the ex-Prince Andrew, for a long, long time and has been slated, but almost everything he said is coming home to roost. Hello to George in West London. Jez, you can always tell when socialists are on the ropes because they resurrect class war. This may have worked 20 years ago, but I don't think people could care a damn what someone else's background is anymore. All we care about is competence, and this government has none of it. Morning, Keith.
Keith in the Philippines. This is another con trick from Starmer. It's an attempt at inverted snobbery and misrepresentation. His father owned Oxted Tool Company. And even if he was a tool maker, so what? Tool makers are some of the elite of manufacturing. Just because you're good with your hands doesn't make you working class. It's like saying a dentist or a surgeon are working class because they're very good with their hands. Very good show. Thank you.
Very nice. 22 minutes to 9 o'clock. And let's say a very good morning to the man who lights up your screens and your radio waves. Andrew Loney, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thanks. Very nice to be with you again.
Well, the people call for it, my friend. The response to you is phenomenal. I have to say, this royal story for me, and I said it earlier, really is not going away. We've talked and seen about Andrew and the revelations. Just overnight, a couple of things I wanted to throw at you. The first, Prince William in Riyadh, heckled, people shouting questions about Andrew. How much did you know? Should more happen? He, head down, ignores that. We saw the clip yesterday, of course, with King Charles, where the man shouted out, "Why are you covering up for your brother?" You and I spoke yesterday about intolerable pressure. Overnight, victims of Jeffrey Epstein and a senator calling for the ex-Duke of York to be hauled in front of Congress. Can you see that happening, Andrew?
I can't see him being hauled in front of Congress because he doesn't have to, but he could be hauled in front of the House of Commons, and I think that's certainly an option. But it's clear the royal family are not able to read the room. The public, again, are way ahead of the royal family. As you know, I feel that Charles has actually been compromised by this situation. I mean, he's known about it. He hasn't dealt with it. They've tried to cover it up and actually suppress it for years. And I think making mealy-mouthed comments about sympathy for the victims isn't going to persuade the public that the royal family are taking this seriously. And I think we've now reached a point where, unless they make some really clear statement about what they knew, when they knew it, what they did then, what they're going to do, I think that Charles should be considering his position. It's very similar to Starmer, someone whose judgment has been called into question, and it's time now for the stables to be cleaned.
It's really interesting, actually. We talked yesterday about, you know, could the ultimate happen? A man, Charles, who waited all of his life to be king, is he so compromised that the only way to save the monarchy, the thing that I know in his heart and heart he believes deeply in, he's talked about, you know, streamlining it and making it more appropriate for 2026. I said to you yesterday, if the option of saving the monarchy is to abdicate in favour of a clean sweep and his son and the wonderful Kate, who I think garner huge respect, would he do that? Kinsey Schofield said something this morning which I wanted to put to you, which I think is fascinating. She said there's a way for that to happen. He's ill, the king, isn't he? It's a very interesting point.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think this could be his great service. I mean, this was an opportunity to reform the royal family, and if that requires him to step aside for a new generation who are not tainted by these allegations, that may be his greatest service. But absolutely, they have an excuse for him at least to take a less active role, even if he doesn't abdicate. So they do have some options, but I don't think they can continue to make rather bland statements, given the anger that there is out there against the way that this story is unfolding. And I think also pressure needs to be put on both the police and on the government, because they too have been covering up for years and need to get their act together.
Well, I was talking to Peter Blexley about the Met Police and close protection, and he said they absolutely should now, you know, privacy is very important, turn a blind eye, but they will be culpable. And I think you're right. I think people in the police forces, close protection, security, and you know, all those Foreign Office officials that you talked about yesterday. And I just, you know, overnight, there was a poll here. Majority of people think the king should encourage Andrew to testify. This ain't going away, is it, Andrew?
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's still a lot more to come out. I mean, I found a lot of new material, which is very damaging. I mean, it's getting darker and darker, the story. I think also we mustn't take our gaze away from Sarah Ferguson, who's shamelessly running around the Middle East trying to get her career back. And she was a material witness to all this. She was actually, there are more numbers for her in Epstein's book than Andrew. She was often staying there. She would have seen things. Why hasn't she been questioned? And I think there are big questions over Sarah Ferguson's use of charities for her own financial benefit, and indeed for ways that she's been running companies. Lots and lots of stories I found which I think could be investigated and could well lead to charges.
And your reason for saying that you believe there's been an institutional cover-up for years is because, and more strength to your elbow, you've been able to find this. Now, many barriers were put in your way. You were threatened, weren't you? You were ridiculed. You were threatened with legal action from all sorts of quarters, which is why, in a way, it sustains you to keep going.
Yes, I mean, it's very gratifying to see that the things that I found and the things I was told have been proved to be true. But there is a big campaign against me. I understand paid for by an Arab billionaire to discredit me and the book, negative reviews. I mean, it has been a long, long campaign just for trying to tell the truth.
In terms of when you look at the royal family now, and I don't know enough about your background, but were you a royalist? Because one of the accusations is that this is simply because you don't like the royal family, but actually everything that you say to this point has come to be true. What's your motivation, Andrew?
Well, I think, you know, all my books, and my books go back, I mean, 40 years, writing about, for example, spies like Guy Burgess, have been about cover-ups. And about, particularly by the establishment. So this is nothing new. I'm a former Conservative political parliamentary candidate, so I'm not someone from the wild left. I'm a very strong monarchist, which is why I feel so strongly that this corruption needs to be rooted out for the sake of the institution itself.
Do you think that this... God, there's so much I could ask you, blimey. Do you think that it can survive if, say, the king... I mean, look, let's ask you the question. Do you think he could, should or might use his cancer as a reason to step aside?
I think that would be a very neat device. I think, as I say, he's deeply compromised. I mean, nothing was done for years. I mean, Andrew was under MI6 surveillance. This stuff was reported to the Queen and to Charles. Charles has been on the throne now 3.5 years. He can't. When I suggested the Queen was complicit in this, I was ridiculed, and now we find that she's the one who's been thrown under the bus by the royal family to take the blame. And I think the neatest solution might be to use his health concerns for him to step back, absolutely.
In terms of the monarchy as an institution, we hear a lot about, you know, it needs to modernise, and Charles has led the way. Just to repeat, you believe that William and Kate can secure its future with that sort of clean brush because they're not old enough to have been implicated. That's your reason for supporting them, right?
Yes, I mean, I think they grasp the nature of this problem. They're not involved with it in the way they haven't been involved in this cover-up that's been going on. They're wildly popular. I mean, clearly, William would prefer to wait until he comes to the throne. But I do think this is a huge crisis for the monarchy. I mean, I think far worse than 1936, which I've written about. And it just may be that is the solution, because this process of just sitting on their hands, hoping the problem's going to go away, isn't going to work this time.
Well, that old adage of the royal family is always just, you know, carry on, don't complain. But silence is not, you know, not going to work. Can I pick up on something you just said? You talked about how Andrew was under surveillance from MI6. You also talked about much more to come. I'm sure you can't give too much away, but what are you talking about? What was he under surveillance for?
Well, Andrew had some very, very dodgy associates, as we know, and these included sex trafficking and money laundering rings run by Russian intelligence. So, as I keep saying, this is a national security problem. The easiest way to penetrate the British establishment was through the royal family and the greed of particular individuals, because there is absolutely no scrutiny. So if you want to launder money, you can do it through royal accounts, which are not subject to any supervision. I mean, if we remember back, Andrews was able to sell his house Sunninghill for £3 million more than the asking price when there were no other bidders. And this was all done through secretive trusts, and people like the solicitors and the bankers, I could better not name them, who should have gone through the money laundering regulations, did not do so. It's now clear that this was money that was being laundered into Britain. You know, the fact is that Andrew was under surveillance, as was Sarah, for some of her associates going back, and this was reported to the palace. In fact, the palace was sent away with a flea in their ear. There's one story I was told of $5 million in a suitcase given to him in Kazakhstan. You know, this is financial corruption at the heart of the royal family that was actually supported by the institution itself.
And of course, you talk about that suitcase, and it brings me back to that time that King Charles, then Prince Charles, had the suitcase with the 2 plastic bags of money when he'd been to Saudi Arabia. That's a fact. That was reported at the time. Is he? I mean, you say tarnished by it. Maybe that's the whole problem here, that the public will not accept. Just as you quite rightly just say, oh, let's keep quiet and it'll go away. It just keeps reminding me of the Queen in Balmoral, as I said to you yesterday after Diana's death, that the strength of the British people should never be underestimated, the silent majority, and I think they're going to push and push and push. What else can you tell us, if you can, that we should expect to be hearing? What the murkiness you talk about?
Well, I mean, I understand that Surrey Police have contacted the FBI about a story there connected with Andrew. There are all sorts of stories about dead bodies and people being killed in rough sex.
Sorry?
There are
Sorry?
stories.
Dead bodies, people being killed during rough sex?
Now, this is all in the Epstein revelations and hasn't been dealt with. So there's a lot of stuff that is beginning to emerge. It's much darker. I had a lot of people talking to me about satanic rites, which I totally ignored, but there were lots of them. And I'm now beginning to look at some of those stories again.
Andrew, it's an extraordinary... I mean, it just seems, in my lifetime, I don't think I've ever seen a story like it. And interestingly, and I think there will be people who will go, what? But there will be other people who will start to say, this is just gathering pace. But as I will say every day, we should never underestimate the British people and their desire, quite rightly, I think, for the truth. And we appreciate you being on, we appreciate your honesty, and we will continue to drop in for your take on this all. Thank you so much indeed. Andrew Loney, who wrote entitled The Fall of the House of York, some amazing revelations that people, by the way, let me point this out, for he's just talked about parties and dead bodies and things. I mean, you might go, what the hell? But he also talked about this 10 years ago, and everybody told him that he was absolutely mad. Turns out he's not. 10 to 9.
Union block vote will be a huge constituent part of who gets elected. Also, the Labour membership will be further to the left, even than the Labour Parliamentary Party. I think all roads lead to Rayner. Now, she's got some tax issues to deal with and sort out, but if she gets that out of the way, I would have thought that it's hers to lose.
Will the country be better or worse without Starmer? I mean, you're saying Rayner might be there, Ed Miliband potentially. Is it going to be a brighter future without him, or is it going to be even worse?
Things can only get worse.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 9. Some sport and a tick. So you are waking up to the news that Keir Starmer has gone left to try and stave off the opposition and save his backside. The Afghan migrant who raped the 12-year-old and was only identified because his Home Office issued debit card was used to buy a drink for her by him after he'd raped her. This country is on its backside. Rupert Lowe, says Poppy in Birmingham, is standing up for the girls. Why don't you talk about him more, Jez? We never hear from him. Well, you will, because he's on this show after 9 o'clock, ahead of 10 o'clock. Morning, David. How are you?
Morning, Jezza. Loving the show. Just recently transferred over from LBC. I do like Nick Ferrari in the morning, but loving Talk Radio. You, Julia, and the rest of the crew, keep up the good work, and also loving the Talk Radio community as well. Fantastic.
Did we pay him to say that? Or maybe he is part of what the audience figures told us last week, that more people than ever before are listening to this station for longer, and we thank you for that. It's because of the truth. We talked very quickly, by the way, about the Afghan migrant, the terrible story this morning. It's not on any front page. The Sun talk about it. No other newspaper. Why? Oh, human rights. No, listen, scumbag, you raped a girl. Get out of my country. Sorry, it's how I see it. Time for some sport. Push the button. Oh, we don't... Great, you've made me look like a right idiot now, haven't you, Big Mark? We'll say ring the producer. We'll say a very good morning to TalkSport presenter and legend, Alex Crook. Good morning.
Good morning.
I was hoping to talk about the mighty Hammers as the great escape continues. That last-minute goal by Man United doesn't dent my belief that West Ham will survive. Quick thoughts, Alex Crook?
Well, as a Manchester United fan, I was probably happier with what happened in stoppage time than you were. But do you know what? Again, a much improved performance from West Ham. I thought you were dead and buried. I've got to be honest. After you were beaten at home by Nottingham Forest, lost at Wolves, which is an achievement in itself this season.
Right,
I thought there's no way West Ham turned this around. But your performances have improved, you've shown a bit of character, and you've got a certain other team in London who are dropping like a stone in Tottenham.
Yeah, we all want Spurs to go down. Alex, talkSPORT leads the way. It's the most fantastic radio station, as we know. But yesterday, even by your standards, there was an almighty row between Simon Jordan, who does White and Jordan at 10 o'clock every day, and Eni Aluko. This is the female sports commentator who got into a spat. Very quickly explain what happened between her and Ian Wright before we play the Simon clip.
Well, basically, this goes back several months now to Eni Aluko complaining that maybe Ian Wright was getting the opportunity to commentate and present on women's football and blocking the path for female pundits. She's done another interview, I think, on a podcast this week where she doubled down on that claim. Since her first attack, if you like, on Ian Wright, she's lost her status as ITV pundit. In fact, I think she lost all of her work in the UK mainstream media. I don't know if this is an attempt to try and win it back or just to settle some old scores, but either way, I think when you take on Ian Wright, who rightly or wrongly has become a bit of a national treasure, there's only going to be one win in that particular argument.
So she pitched up on talkSPORT yesterday. My good friend Simon Jordan didn't hold up and basically said, you're just playing the race card, love. Have a watch, have a listen.
You've just said you think Eni is guilty on occasion of playing certain cards.
I do.
Is one of those cards the racism card?
I think so, yes.
Well,
yeah, I think to suggest that questioning the validity of DEI and saying that's a racist thought, I think is wrong.
A court has said it's a racist thought.
Listen, I think questioning DEI as a policy and quotas as a policy over merit is not a racist thought. One of the most interesting statistics is young white men in this country are the most disadvantaged. But no one's interested in that DEI perspective.
I wouldn't say no one's interested.
Well, they're not really.
I think that,
Well, they're only interested, and if we start talking about it, it goes back to what's happening in other ethnicities.
Well, look, I came on here to talk about
anyway, it's gone off on
football,
a tangent.
but...
And then he went further, and I have to say I agree with him. He said, well, then he talked about her punditry.
The language that you use, Eni, is, to me, it's steeped in a sense of entitlement. I mean, the sheer weight of the entitlement that you seem to believe that you have would resink the Titanic. I think you've been quite fortuitous. I think because of initiatives like DEI, they've allowed people to be put into positions in the men's game that I don't think they've merited, and now that sort of seeds an attitude that you become a stalwart in the women's game.
Alex Crook, I want to tell you something. I've long wanted to say this because my father-in-law, Rob, and I watch football all the time, and he's 80 years of age, and he's a Chelsea fan, which is very sad. But it enrages him, and I just want to throw this into the argument. He says, can you explain to me, and I'm 80, why when I watch a men's football match nowadays, there always has to be a female commentator? And if that's balance, he always says to me, can you tell me then why there's never a man, bar Ian Wright occasionally, covering female football? And he and Simon Jordan have a point, don't they?
Well, I think this is where Eni Aluko's argument falls down, because if she's saying basically that the women's game should be a closed shop for female pundits, then therefore there is a counter-argument that maybe ex-female players shouldn't be allowed to work in the men's game. I totally disagree with that. I think there are some excellent female pundits. I don't believe that Eni Aluko particularly is one. She described herself during this exchange with Simon Jordan as a brilliant pundit. I think there'd be a lot of people who would push back against that. One of the key factors, I think, when you are a pundit is likability, and if you look at the reaction on social media, and it's not necessarily a complete science, but it doesn't seem like Eni Aluko has that likability, certainly not with your run-of-the-mill football fan. And I think it's great that someone like Ian Wright, with the history he has in the game, has thrown his weight behind the women's game. And I think the more ex-men's players who follow suit, the more it's going to raise the profile.
But the point that Simon makes so well is, I think all of us with the brain cell are happy for balance. But DEI has gone so far the other way that it becomes a box-ticking exercise, not based on ability, not based on talent or likability, as you say. It's about, let's get that person in because of their gender or their sex or their race or their religion, to the detriment of doing the job correctly. And that's the problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it is. I think it's very difficult now for certain members of society to get their breakthrough working in the media. Because, it has gone, in my opinion, too far the other way. If I was in a position where I was head of sport at ITV, I wouldn't be looking at colour, I wouldn't be looking at ethnicity, I would be looking at talent and ability. Call me old-fashioned, but that's how I've always worked.
The boss of a very impressive television network once told me that if you're white at the moment and middle class and 25, you are not at the front of the queue. You're probably nearer the back, and that is exactly what Simon Jordan was brave enough to say, and I stand with him. Alex, not bad for a Manchester United fan. Get off. Thanks very much, my old friend. TalkSport covering all the main sport, and talk about likeability. I've lasted 30 years and no bugger likes me. Right, it's almost 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Dan Hodge is starting the next hour. He's a lot to say about the Prime Minister. And Rupert Lowe, independent for Grady Armour, thought that was the show before 10 o'clock. And Julia, the news at 9, next on Talk Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom on Talk, the home of common sense, the home of alarm clock Brits. And thank you, I'm going to keep saying it, in the latest audience figures, it showed that more people are listening for longer to Talk, the home of common sense, than any other speech-based radio station in the UK. That is a fact. In the last hour, a couple of people have moved back to this station because we speak the sense, we speak the truth. You can say what you want. We're not out to offend, we're out to be honest. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes or calls, and text to 87222. Of course, the news centring on 2 or 3 main news stories today. Keir Starmer lurching to the left in a desperate political attempt to save his own skin, according to many. There he is yesterday, if you're watching on screen, speaking to 3 very bored-looking people about how he's a working-class lad. It's all about the working classes, and I have the most working class cabinet in history. Hasn't mentioned that before. I'm sure it's something to do with the fact that Rayner and Miliband won his job. But who am I to say that? We'll have Dan Hodges in just a tick. What does he think about the current situation? You have been rightly appalled this morning by a story that the mainstream, I hate saying that, but it's not on the front of any newspaper. The Sun reported the Afghan migrant found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton in Warwickshire, jailed yesterday. And it came out that this guy laughed, Ahmed Mulakil laughed, sexually assaulted and then took indecent images of this young girl. And for people on the left or people who go, oh, come on, he's come from a war-torn country. No, he hasn't. He'd been here a matter of weeks. He's an Afghan who barely speaks English. But get this, my friends, he used his Home Office issued debit card to buy the girl a drink after he raped her. And that is the only way that the police found him. As Joanna in Salisbury says, the Afghan identified by his card. The vast majority of child rape and sexual abuse cases remain unsolved, less than 3%. 1,646 child rape cases waiting to go to trial. I wonder how many are migrants. Ben in London goes further, and I completely identify with this, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on. How would Keir feel if the next rape victim was a relative or a child of his? Whose human rights, in that instance, would be a priority to a Prime Minister who makes that his priority? Good morning, Barry.
Barry in Norwich. I can't understand why no one hasn't sued the government yet for negligence. The government allowing these people to come in and rape our children and rape our women. Why isn't no one suing them for negligence?
We say a very good morning to top man as well, Dan Hodges from the Mail on Sunday. Dan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Very well.
We can talk about Starmer, but let's start with this story that nobody seems to have been talking about on the front pages. And I don't, you know, you might go, oh, I have been ranting because it makes me sick to the bleeding stomach as a father of teenage girls. And I am sick to death of people on the left saying to me, well, white men rape women. Yeah, they do. But if you are having people come into your country who are not vetted and not checked, who don't share the same values of women as we do in the United Kingdom, who do not speak language, who are given Home Office debit cards, and the facts are there, I think it's a national disgrace, man. I think we need to face up to this, that this human rights rubbish needs to be put second to the safety of our girls, doesn't it?
I completely agree with you. The issue is that, you know, and obviously your anger and the anger of people around this is understandable and legitimate. The issue we've got, though, is that politicians of all persuasions are currently unable to get to grips with this crisis. And obviously the origins of this crisis are something, you know, you and I have talked about before, and that obviously, you know, it gets a huge amount of coverage, which is the government has yet to come up with a way of dealing with the small boats crisis and dealing with the migration crisis. But as I say, I mean, in all fairness, that is not something you can simply lay at the door of left-wing politicians, because obviously we had a Conservative government for decades, and they didn't get to grips completely with the problem either. No. I mean, again, I'm going to be completely honest with you. It is not that, you know, politicians like we've got Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, who is acutely aware of this crisis and is doing what she can to get to grips with this crisis. But as I say, she's dealing with the legacy of an issue that goes back decades, maybe even further than that. So it's not a question that politicians don't care. They literally just don't know what to do about it. But they just genuinely do not know what to do.
No. But as a member of the public, my answer to that is, you can be appalled, or you can stick your head in the sand and just describe it as collateral damage. You can say, I care. Are we then employing politicians or electing politicians that don't have the will or the gumption or the bloody brains to work it out? I just think, I don't want to go on forever. Well, I just think it's an absolute disgrace. That
obviously goes to the heart of the political problem we're facing at the moment. Yeah. I mean, obviously people are, you know, obviously many of your viewers and listeners and the country at large, they are sick of politicians who say we can't get to grips with this problem. It's precisely why we've got the crisis we have in our politics at the moment. It's precisely why, you know, Nigel Farage and Reform are currently heading the polls, because people are saying we've got to do something about this. We've tried the main parties, they haven't got to grips with it. We're fed up with the excuses.
I want to bring it on, and I want to absolutely herald your tweet that you made. I have watched, we haven't spoken for a week, I have watched in sort of abject horror, disbelief and humour as this government has lurched from disaster to disaster. Monday was interesting when I would have had a bet around lunchtime when Samwell came out, the Scottish leader, that Starmer would go. Then they all, within 30 seconds, rode in behind him, and I questioned whether he'd threaten them with a general election. I don't know, anyway. So then we get to the point, and then yesterday, of course, kiss from Wes Streeting, or Les Tweeting, as it said in the Telegraph. I love that from Number 10. I've got to repeat that yesterday. It said on the front of the Telegraph, Number 10 said, "We know who it is. His name rhymes with Les Tweeting." I thought, Jesus, that's as good as you can do. Anyway, we now find ourselves in a position where the Prime Minister launches what can only be described, Dan, as a class war to try and save his skin, to go to the left, to talk about working people, to sort of keep an eye, if you like, on Rayner and Miliband. And you wrote a great tweet, because it was only yesterday evening that a certain Matthew Doyle, who was given, Lord Doyle, isn't he now, who was a major part of Starmer's government, was suspended from the Labour Party for links to a paedophile councillor. And Dan tweeted, ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister's view appears to be that if you knowingly associate with a paedophile, you should be immediately suspended from the Labour Party. Matthew Doyle. Fine. But why wasn't that his position when he read the Mandelson due diligence file? Says it all, doesn't it, Dan Hodges?
Well, absolutely. And actually, this is obviously a sort of, if you like, it's not quite a breaking story, but it's certainly a developing story. This Matthew Doyle story, in some ways, I think this is even worse for the Prime Minister than the Mandelson story, although they're connected, because it does graphically expose what I think is a serious problem for Starmer, and goes to the heart of not his Downing Street operation, but Starmer himself and how he's conducting his politics. We had this whole thing with Mandelson that we didn't know, and as soon as the Prime Minister did know and the Epstein evidence was produced, he sacked Mandelson. Now, obviously, that argument is unravelling, and I think will continue to unravel. But with the Doyle saga, there is absolutely no doubt. It is very clear. He was appointed by Downing Street despite issues relating to his association with a paedophile. Again, we had all the stuff of there was vetting, etc., and he was cleared. Fine. But in December the 27th specifically, Gabriel Pogrund, colleague works in the lobby, produced a story in which he explicitly revealed, without any ambiguity, Doyle's relationship with this guy and what this guy had done. So Downing Street were aware of this in December. Keir Starmer did nothing. Downing Street did nothing. Keir Starmer did not care at that point. Keir Starmer was perfectly happy at that time for Matthew Doyle, with this association, to continue to be a peer of the realm, carrying the Labour whip, following his, Keir Starmer's, personal appointment of him. Now, all of a sudden, we've got Labour MPs running around saying, oh, you know, the Prime Minister has acted decisively. You know, the Prime Minister thinks things need to change. No, hang on. The Prime Minister didn't act decisively. The Prime Minister didn't care. What changed was the Doyle appointment became a political problem for Keir Starmer. And this is the thing this is the pattern we're seeing now. And, you know, obviously it does actually, in a sense, link back to what we were saying before. We've seen it with the grooming gangs. We've seen it with the Mandelson saga, and now we're seeing it with Matthew Doyle. Keir Starmer, we get all this stuff about it's all about the victims. Keir Starmer does not care about the victims until the victims become a political problem for him. That's the moment he acts. That's the moment the Labour Party acts. It's only when it's Keir Starmer's position that it is risk. Not that when victims are at risk, that this government acts. And frankly, you know, I am sick of the sight of Labour ministers gaslighting the public and telling us, we're going to see it all day today. We're going to see it all day. We're going to have Labour ministers out there gaslighting the public, saying, oh, the Prime Minister acted decisively, the Prime Minister thinks needs to change. No, he doesn't. He only acted in this case because it became a political risk for him.
Which, of course, then begs two questions. One is, how many more of these appallingly badly judged appointments are there? How many more skeletons are there in the cupboard? And, as we've said from the beginning, you and I, and I know that you had more hope, but even I had a bit of hope at the beginning. It's been an absolute travesty, the whole thing, is his judgment is just not, in my mind, it's not good enough to be the Prime Minister of this country. We can talk about DNA and political antennae and not having a plan and getting rid of this and getting rid of that. But I look at, this is personal, really. I look at the man, I look at him yesterday in his shirt sleeves in front of 3 people who looked like they were vegged out on Mogadon, right? You just don't buy, I don't buy, I'm being straight here, I don't ever feel it comes from his heart. I don't ever feel he genuinely believes it. I've always looked at him as some sort of android who is told by somebody that a focus group has said, if you do this now, and that ties in with what you've said, that the Matthew Doyle scenario, the Peter Mandelson scenario, the Morgan McSweeney scenario, the Chris Warmold, all of that only becomes relevant in his world when he's threatened. And that is not a... best way I can describe this, Matt, it's not a proactive Prime Minister. I think he's a reactive Prime Minister, and I think the British public know that.
But it's even beyond that, and this is why the Mandelson, this whole Mandelson-Doyle, whatever, saga, I think, is still... Well, I mean, it's quite clearly, politically unsurvivable for Keir Starmer, yeah. But I think it's why it will come to a head much sooner than people are thinking. Obviously, Keir Starmer had a good day on Monday. It's all relative, obviously, but he had a good day on Monday. But the key thing is this, it's incredible the speed with which these things moved. This time last week, Keir Starmer gave a speech, and he stood up and he discussed the Peter Mandelson saga. And he said, even though he was aware and had been handed a file by the Cabinet Office detailing Peter Mandel's ongoing relationship with Epstein, he basically tasked his officials to interview Mandelson. Mandelson said to his officials, and by extension to Keir Starmer, not only that did he not have an ongoing relationship with Epstein, but in Keir Starmer's only words, he barely knew Epstein and had not enjoyed hospitality from the man or a close relationship. Now, within the file that Keir Starmer was presented with is a photo that we have all seen of Peter Mandelson with Jeffrey Epstein in his Paris flat with a giant birthday cake, blowing the candles off a giant birthday cake. Yeah. Keir Starmer then went on to say and tell the country he had, quote, he had no reason to disbelieve Peter Mandelson when Peter Mandelson said he barely knew Epstein. Now, this is not just incredible. As you said, this goes to the heart of the governance of our country. Yeah. There are either two answers to this conundrum. Either Keir Starmer knew Peter Mandelson was lying to him and appointed him anyway, in which case, in my view, that is quite clearly a resignation offence, or Keir Starmer didn't know. Keir Starmer genuinely was duped. Keir Starmer looked at a photo of a man, of the 2 men, and a giant birthday cake, and when Peter Mandelson said to him, I barely knew the guy, Keir Starmer said, OK, fair enough. Yeah. In which case, you're absolutely right. He quite clearly does not have the critical faculties, sufficient curiosity, and sufficient cynicism to be Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This is the man who we're told we should put in front of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. No, mate, I couldn't agree more. And the only thing I wanted to say to finish it off was, I didn't think I thought he would go voluntarily before today, because I think Prime Minister's Question Time might be the most uncomfortable / brilliant thing to watch in the history of the world. I mean, I'm not, hopefully Badenoch will bring it to the party. I'll be asking about the Afghan migrant, saying, what was that if that was your daughter? But the guy has been caught out. Last Wednesday, none of us will forget when he went, yeah, I did know. And the whole thing, everything just comes tumbling down. He's got to stand in front of a bunch of people who don't trust him, who want him out, and face a bunch of people who are going to ridicule him. I mean, but, for all those people who go, oh, brought it on himself. You said sooner rather than later. Final question. Great to have you on. Love having you on, Dan. Why would anybody want to be the leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister when you've got by-election on the 26th of February and then, of course, the May elections where every poll says they're going to be eviscerated? That's like a Premiership manager going, like I said earlier, can I wait 2 weeks because we've got Arsenal, Man City, and I'm going to get absolutely nothing out of that, and I want to come in when we're playing, I'll give it to you, West Ham. That's how I see it. Why would anybody want the gig?
That is basically why Keir Starmer is still in Downing Street, because we had all these, these protestations of loyalty and fealty on Monday from the cabinet after, in fairness, Downing Street basically put a gun to their head.
Yeah.
But the reality is, people are waiting till the local elections. The by-election will be the first trigger, and then the local elections, to get their campaign set up. Obviously you can see it. Websites are popping up all over the place at the moment, which is always the big tell. We will see. I think obviously you've been talking about Rayner Streeting, Burnham, etc. I think over the next couple of weeks we'll see more of the cabinet big beasts start to get onto the park as well. As you say, they just don't want to be tainted by the local election results. They want to be able to point to Starmer and say he's electorally unviable. They want, effectively, what they want is they want the British people to get rid of Keir Starmer, not to have to do it themselves. So
I love it. Completely with you, mate. Listen, love having you on every Wednesday. Really appreciate your time. Check him out in the Mail and the Sunday Mail as well. Brilliant. Dan Hodges, thank you very much indeed. 9:20. Morning, Peter.
Morning, Jezza. I think if King Charles wants this country to support him, he's got to do something for us. He's got to dissolve this treacherous, treasonous Labour government before they can do any more damage to his people. It's just outrageous what they are doing to this country. Cheers, buddy. You're doing a great job.
Good man. 9:20. If you want to be on ahead of 10 o'clock, and Julia Hartley-Brewer, 0344 499 for your calls and those voice notes, of course, to Christian. You can also text 87222. Kay Jones is a very happy woman. We say a very good morning to the Independent MP for Great Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you?
Morning, Jeremy. How are you?
Well, I'm all right. I'm slightly angry about lots of things like you, but I'm cracking on, my friend. You look like you're sitting comfortably somewhere after probably a nice breakfast, whilst I've been up since 2 o'clock and haven't eaten anything.
No, I haven't had any breakfast. I've been on the run. I've sort of made time to talk to you, so here I am, sitting in front of my Francis Bacon copy picture.
Good man. I don't want to talk about Starmer to you. I want to talk about something that has completely galvanised the audience this morning, as it damn well should. And I have to apologise. No, just be honest. It infuriates me more than anything, and I've been ranting all morning. An Afghan migrant has been found guilty of raping a 12-year-old girl, Rupert, just months after arriving in Britain. This was yesterday. Ahmed Mullakil laughed as he raped, sexually assaulted and took indecent images of the schoolgirl in Nuneaton in Warwickshire. And get this, he was only identified by the police because the Home Office issued debit card, he used it after he raped her to buy a drink. I very calmly put this to you, Rupert. The British public aren't going to accept this for much longer. It is no way plausible anymore for the left to say to me, white men rape girls as well. We are letting into our country, let what we called all the names under the sun, but we are letting unfiltered and unvetted into our country men who have a very different value about women, who do not understand those values, who are coming here for the wrong reasons. And I think that any government, and I include Boris Johnson's in this and governments before, have a massive case to answer for, because all we hear about is human rights. Well, what about the human rights of these 12-year-old girls, Rupert Lowe?
Well, you know my views, Jeremy. Still Britain has written a detailed document on detaining and deporting illegal migrants. We went into the reasons why it's difficult under the Constitution, what the solutions to the constitutional issues are, and then basically what the practical solutions are, starting with creating a hostile environment. So I start from the basis that illegal means illegal, and people who come here illegally should be immediately detained and deported. Where I think we're going badly wrong is we are actually, not only are we bringing them in, giving them, as you say, credit cards, money, spending money, putting them in hotels, and some of the contracts I've seen which specify certain quality hotels, certain turnaround times for laundry. I mean, the sort of things you just couldn't make up. I mean, we are basically signing our own death warrant. So we are taking in these people. They're from very different cultures from us. They're from collectivist tribal cultures. They have a completely different outlook on life. We are a liberal, individualistic country, and we face very little chance if the collective comes in and effectively occupies our country, which is what is happening. And somebody said to me only yesterday that they consider this rather like the sort of Viking raiders who came and took our women and raped and pillaged. It's almost as if they are invading us and they expect to be able to subjugate, abuse and take advantage of our children and our women, which is just not right, Jeremy. And it's time everybody in this country stood up to it. You probably know I've spent the last 10 days at the rape gang hearings. 20,000 people crowdfunded our rape gang inquiry because the government has done absolutely nothing about it. It's a national scandal. It's going on across the country. And, you know, rape is just one part of it. I mean, today or tomorrow, actually, I've read a witness statement, which is so horrific that when I think it's released, Jeremy, I think the whole of Britain will be absolutely shaken by it.
You talked about, and of course it's not right, and I'm with you. I'm with everybody in this, but this to me doesn't even become political. I'd like you to answer this: how have successive prime ministers, cabinets, senior politicians had it in them to just be able to call this collateral damage? I want to say to these politicians, what if that was your teenage girl? I am sick and tired of hearing about, well, it's this treaty or it's this treaty or it's difficult. I don't even think that they should be allowed here illegally. I think the Royal Navy should stop these people coming here.
You probably saw in this case that the Taliban actually said they'd willingly take him back to Afghanistan, but that we have effectively no relationship with the Taliban. And therefore, you know, we aren't engaging with them. But my view would be these people should be sent straight back to the country that they came from. Yeah. And they're here illegally. They shouldn't be here in the first place. And to settle them across Britain and put our families, our women, our children, and our communities into the kind of danger that this miscreant has perpetrated on a 12-year-old is frankly a disgrace, Jeremy. But I think you asked me what's the root cause of it. Well, the root cause of it is this misguided post-war concept of multiculturalism, which we've been warned about by many people on many occasions. It's taken rather longer than the warnings, you know, to come to fruition. But what we're now seeing is we're actually seeing the depth of the damage that this has done to our high-trust society. And I think this is the last chance we've got to actually stand up and address this issue before it effectively washes us all away and we lose the country and the culture that we so value. But unfortunately, words aren't going to be enough. I think people have got to actually do things. I have a saying, watch what the hands are doing, not what the mouth is saying. Well, I think it's time that the hands started doing rather more than they have been doing. And the hands should be effectively detaining and deporting these illegals. We should be detaining and we should be deporting illegal criminals from our prisons, which, again, they shouldn't come here and commit crime. If they do, they should be deported. And then we should start to turn our attention, as we've already said, to those people who are here, who are living on the back of the British taxpayer and who are not contributing to Britain. But the culture that we've created, the DEI culture, which I think is a sort of a reaction of the state to try and protect itself from what it knows is the failure of this multicultural experiment. That is to stop honest, decent, tax-paying people from questioning why what is happening appears to be so ludicrous. And as you know, it's easier to strongly police the people, the indigenous people, than it is to strongly police people who come here who have no respect for our culture, our laws, or us as people.
It just sounds, when you describe it like that, you know, DEI, I completely agree with you. I said at the beginning of our interview, people will say to me, well, white men rape women, and people say to me, they still say to me, they come from war-torn countries. No, Darren Jones, the majority of women and children. No, you idiot. These are young men who, for a variety of reasons, probably because our welfare state is as easy to take advantage of than anything else in the world, probably because there's no way that you couldn't get into Britain because it's an absolute joke fest, there's no security whatsoever, that you don't have to adhere to anything because the taxpayer is so stupid, or its government is, that will pay for a human rights law to find some obscure clause that'll mean that you can say, well, if I have to go back to Afghanistan, they might treat me really badly. I've had listeners and callers this morning, and I wanted to put this to you, Rupert. This is just a genuine thing, saying that these men should be castrated. There are some even saying that the death penalty would be justifiable. Where are you on that?
Well, I think we've made our position clear, Jeremy, for heinous crimes. I think there is now a very good argument, or there is an argument for having the debate about whether the death penalty should be reintroduced. Personally, I support it for heinous crimes. I support it for abuse of children. I support it for things which I think are, well, I'm seeing them. They're so vile, and you've probably noticed. I mean, I've had to listen to witness statements for the last 2 weeks, which basically reduce you to incredulity. You just can't believe that one human being can do this to another human being, and it's happening today. It's still happening. So if you notice, the BBC have not mentioned it. No. Many of the mainstream media platforms, I don't think the Telegraph's mentioned it. To be fair to GB News, who pretty much iced me out of most things since Nigel tried to politically assassinate me, ultimately, even they have carried this story, which, frankly, is the most significant story that the public should be made aware of. This is happening up and down the country, Jeremy. It's been happening for 25 years. And what it shows is massive state failure to serve the people who they're paid to serve. And that's all organs of the state. That is the police, the social services, local government, the NHS, the education system. It's absolutely everybody in a position of authority who should have done a job and has failed to do it. And you hear over and over again from these witnesses, they go to the school, they go to the NHS with all of the, because a lot of these people become very ill because they're being abused by hundreds and hundreds of men. And of course they get diseases, they get all sorts of horrible things done to them which necessitate medical treatment. What have our establishment done about it? Diddly squat, or as I prefer to say, absolute diddly squat. That's what they've done, Jeremy, and they all deserve to be held to account for it. And I said in the House yesterday, when we finish this, when we've written the report, we are intending to pursue private prosecutions against those people who've failed in their duty. And I frankly don't think anybody in public service is going to do anything until they realise the consequences of not doing your job are going to land you in deep water and even potentially in prison.
I have a massive belief in the British public. I'm sure you do as well. I've noticed a real shift, Rupert, in the last few months. Somebody sent a text to me. I've never said this to you. I've said it to other people on the show. It was about 6 months ago, and somebody sent a message which simply said, Jez, when the silent majority wake up and realise that their voice can be heard and can make a difference, it doesn't matter the colour of the political party in power, they need to watch out. I don't think the British public right now will accept the immigration horrors. I don't think they will accept the royal family, the Epstein, all those sorts of things. I think people are waking up and believing that their voice can make a difference. Can I be clear? This Afghan rapist we talked about, if you were the Prime Minister today, would that Afghan be sentenced to death?
Well, I don't have the power of I mean, we have to stick to the rule of law, Jeremy, so you have to change the law first. But
would you, as Prime Minister, change the law so somebody like him would be sentenced to death?
I would certainly, as I said earlier, start the debate on changing the law, yes. I think there are many people in this country who would support the death penalty. And I think, again, for certain heinous crimes, I mean, this Rudder Cabana character, people like that who actually committed crimes which are beyond any question, I don't see why we should rehabilitate them or indeed pay for them over many years. They are miscreants, and we're better off without them. So either send them back to their own country and let them face justice there, And there are rules, I think, in countries such as Afghanistan, where if you rape young girls, the penalties are far more severe for doing that than they are here. So if that means they suffer the penalty that they get at home, then we should send them back.
Has anybody worked out that might be why they come here in the first place?
Well, I think they come here because they think we're soft. We hand out far too much welfare. You probably saw the boss of Tesco today saying we are suffering from a welfare culture, and he's extremely concerned that more people appear to be on welfare than working. Well, I'm in favour of the workers, not the shirkers, as I've said on many occasions. I'm in favour of the people who live honestly, who live by the law, who pay their taxes, and who want to effectively bring up their family in a safe and secure environment. I am not with people who want to come and damage our culture and damage everything that Britain has built up over many centuries and even millennia. So no, I think it's time for the British people, to your point, to wake up. They do need to start to make their voices heard. We do need to start to turn this round, and we need to start making common sense prevail again, because at the moment, from what I can see, our state is completely out of control. It's malign, and it is now the enemy of our people. So I think the electorate needs to get that into their head and start voting for radical change.
Rupert Lowe, it's always great. Listen, good luck and more strength to your elbow with the inquiry that you are doing, and we're very much looking forward to having you on the show again soon. Independent MP for Greater Yarmouth, Rupert Lowe, thank you very much indeed. Very clear, very concise and very sure what he would do. Are we going to the break with a voice note? Have you got me one? Oh, we go. Oh, sorry. OK, Mark's spoken. Straight to the break.
This is the Political Asylum, current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
We're with you every weekday night, Monday to Friday, 7 until 10 p.m, right here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:38, not that you care. Almost 20 to 10, Julia here from 10 o'clock as ever, the Queen of Westminster. And don't miss Prime Minister's Question Time. I was going to say unflappable, no, the completely insecure and paranoid Sir Keir Starmer doing Prime Minister's Question Times. That's going to be fun. God, I wish I could ask him a question. Why are you such a complete... Anyway, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Loads going on. You remember that interview? If you didn't hear it, tell your friends. Andrew Loney, who has some amazing stuff to say about the Duke of York and, in fact, the royal family in its entirety. This man wrote a book entitled The Fall of the House of York years ago and was ridiculed. There are some shocking revelations, he says, are still to come about Fergie, about Andrew, about the palace, about the royal family. That is on YouTube right now. It is fascinating to listen to this guy, and it gets so much traction. So have a look, have a watch, have a listen, and if you want to be on the next 20 minutes, 87222. Steve says, Jeremy, as everybody always says in politics, as soon as anybody says they have an absolute confidence in someone, you know that somebody's about to be chopped in half. The Labour Party Parliamentary Party know exactly what they're going to do. He is essentially a lame duck Prime Minister. Couldn't agree more. John's going, it's drizzly in Bristol. It's drizzly bloody everywhere, John. It's not just you, it's drizzly here. The Afghan migrant arrives here illegally, then commits a horrible, horrible crime and will hopefully serve a long prison sentence. Personally, I'd say life. But he won't. We all know it'll be a shorter sentence. He might only serve half. We have no deportation agreement with Afghanistan, so he'll be released at some point back into the community. It is a complete and utter disgrace. I've just switched from GB News to Talk, says Kay Jones. Nice. Good morning. Surely if the King cares about this country and subjects, should he not use the monarch's unused power to kick the government out and call for another election? Because it's wrecking the economy and it's wrecking this country, says Tom in Bletchley. Tom, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the King's got bigger problems trying to sustain his own job right now. Adrian's in Horsham, where I once went for a dirty weekend and ended up in hospital. But that's another story that I'm not sharing with you. Jez, enjoying the show this morning. What, you didn't yesterday? I want to start by saying I have always held Ian Duncan Smith in very high regard. However, even listening to his mealy-mouthed, frankly weak protestations about the illegal immigrant convicted of rape left me in despair. I found his comments aloof, wanting and extremely disappointing. Do something, man, for heaven's sake. Adrian, I will say this about Ian Duncan Smith. He's a man of real honour and integrity, and he cares deeply. I think that all of the Tory party are tainted to a degree with not having done any more, and I think they're very desperate for us to draw a line in the sand and move on. It wasn't just Ian Duncan Smith. There's a litany of politicians who I think would probably look back and say, for example, the Afghan situation, we should have done a lot more a lot longer ago. But you can only look forward, not back. David says, morning JK, is this scumbag Afghan still having his government debit card being topped up whilst he's in prison? Probably, so he can buy, you know, treats and stuff. Don't start me, you'll wind me up. Just want to do another story very quickly, if I can. Reports of anti-Semitism, and you know where I am on this. I have many Jewish friends, and I will forever say that for me any racism is abhorrent, despite what people accuse us of, because we dare to want to do what's right by the country. Anti-Semitism, though, seems to never get the credit's the wrong word, the coverage that it deserves. Is that because of the colour of the skin? Reports of anti-Semitism incidents in the UK spiked after the deadly Manchester synagogue attack of last year. The Community Security Trust, the CST, which provides security and monitors anti-Semitism in the UK, said that 40 incidents were recorded on the day of the attack and 40 the day after, the highest daily total of 2025. Delighted to have on now Gideon Falter, the Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Gideon, I think you know I am with you 1,000,000%.
I'm really grateful for that as well, because unfortunately we're living at a time where that is not a given.
You know, there's a lot. I have to be really honest with you. I wanted to go over the top. There's an awful lot that is embarrassing me about this country right now. The way the Jewish community... I told somebody the other day, actually, that Jake Wallace-Simmons, I was at the airport about a month ago, and there was a Jewish man and his wife, and I don't even know what... I just said sorry. And he said, thank you. And I genuinely meant it, because the way that so many people in this country have behaved towards the Jewish community, I find deplorable and embarrassing. And anything that we can do to highlight that, I think is really, really important, isn't it?
I'm really grateful for it, but you definitely have nothing to apologize for. And to be honest, neither do most people in this country. I think most people in this country are just absolutely staggered and disgusted at the way things have been going. You know, it's a handful of extremists we keep getting told, but it's no longer a handful. There is now a real current of extremism flowing through British society. There's obviously a major problem with Islamist extremism, but we're also seeing now radicalization of young people. This sort of far left extremism is growing more and more stronger and stronger, and it is having an effect on this country. The country is changing, and as is always the case with this kind of a problem, it's when you get rising radicalism, rising extremism, it's the Jewish community that feels it first. We're the first targets for these kinds of people.
Why do you think, Gideon, why do you think that is? Help me out. Why? Why should the Jewish community be targeted first and foremost?
We're an easy target. We're a tiny community. There are only 250,000 Jews in the UK. There are only about 15 million Jews in the entire world. So we're a tiny minority pretty much wherever we are. And we are, we generally get on with our lives. We integrate into society. We contribute to society. We just want to live our lives, educate our kids, and, thrive like everybody else. And unfortunately, that means that we are generally seen as a soft target. And you look at some of the incidents that were taking place last year. That whenever you see statistics like it's the second worst year on record and all that sort of a thing, you think, okay, well, what does that actually mean? And what it actually means is a total breakdown. So you've got incidents such as Jewish people sitting in a restaurant in central London in broad daylight. Somebody comes towards them, shouts "Free Palestine" at them, accuses them of being baby killers, flips their food all over them. And you think, okay, that's an incident. Let's look at what happens there. What happened there is that I think police took a while to come. They did eventually find the perpetrator. That person went through a court process, and at the end of it, the judge said, "You're free to go. I'm going to give you a suspended prison sentence. You're free to go." So this is in one of those rare occasions where someone actually does get caught and prosecuted, which I cannot emphasize enough. The majority of these incidents, no one gets caught. And even if someone does get caught, they don't actually go through with the prosecution. And here's an incident where they did get caught. There was a prosecution, and then they walked free at the end of it. So what does that tell anti-Semites? What does that tell the Jewish community? And this is all happening in an atmosphere where, last year, which is what these stats relate to, for the first time, you actually had a lethal terrorist attack on British soil where Jews were killed at synagogue on the holiest day of the Jewish calendar. That's also in a year where men were caught and convicted. They'd acquired, I think, 4 assault rifles, hundreds and hundreds of bullets to go and carry out a mass shooting of Jews in the UK. Thankfully, our security services got there first and caught them red-handed with the assault rifles, and they've been now convicted. But that's the kind of environment, that's the kind of risk that we're facing. These are the kinds of attacks that could be happening. And just look at what the atmosphere is charged with.
Wouldn't it be interesting, my friend, to the spike is undoubtedly happening. You can look at October the 7th. You look at the displaced view that everything that happens in Gaza is 250,000 Jews fought in England, which is ridiculous and ludicrous. But would it not be very interesting? Because if we're being really, really honest, the reason the government are impotent on this is because they are terrified. We know this. Look at the demographics, look at the seats, look at everything that is taken as a decision by this government. Let's take you to the Bell Hotel in Epping that caused all the hassle with the illegal migrant. The 2 young girls attacked sexually. The migrant hotel next to the secondary school. The mothers, the pink ladies, come out and they say, "We're not right-wing thugs, we're not fascists, we're protecting our kids." They go to the council go to court and win, and that hotel cannot be used again for illegal migrants. Our own government takes the council back to court and says the rights of migrants are more important than the rights of the indigenous population. Wouldn't it be interesting if this government did the same for the Jewish community, as it seems to do for almost every other community, including the Muslim community? I don't see why the Jews are always targeted. I really don't. It's wrong. Fundamentally wrong.
And we're not, the British Jewish community is not asking for any kind of special treatment here.
No.
We just want
level playing field, right?
And look at how the law enforcement system reacted after Southport. All of a sudden, police forces up and down the country were going out of their way to bring people in, tear them off the street. Crown Prosecution Service reacting with rapid, record speed. Courts were able to organise hearings straight away and dish out sentences. And that's for what happened after Southport. Now look at what happened after the Yom Kippur terrorist attack in Manchester last year. And we see what happened. There was a spike in incidents and no spike in law enforcement. There was the Prime Minister saying that he was going to do everything in his power to tackle anti-Semitism in this country. And, you look at the kinds of things that are going on. We had that horrendous incident last year where Bob Villan standing on the stage at Glastonbury, all
death to the IDF.
Yeah, and in fact, even before he started chanting about the IDF, he started on this rant about how he'd had to work for effing Zionists. So these guys aren't even hiding it. No. Straight after that, we had incidents coming into us. So, for example, a lady sitting on the tube and someone starts playing to her on their phone, death to the IDF.
Mate, I would have, I'll always have you guys on. I've got you back. Finally, do me a favour, Gideon Fulter, Chief Exec of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism that we will back forever. What's your message, very briefly, to Sir Keir Starmer, my friend?
You are absolutely not doing anything in your power to deal with this wave of violent anti-Semitism, to deal with this wave of extremism. And it's not just Jews who are being affected. This is British kids who are being radicalised day in, day out. You've got law enforcement where the police chiefs are failing miserably to enforce the law. You have shown in the past that after Southport and other incidents, you are able to bring the entire system into line to react rapidly and with zero tolerance. Where is that when it comes to the Jewish community and when it comes to extremism here in our country?
Couldn't agree more. Love having you on. Gideon Fulter, thank you very much indeed. Chief Exec at the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Talk Breakfast, 9 minutes to 10.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8 minutes to 10. Julia and a tick. Hello to Mervyn, Wiltshire. Just a thought. Could Kemi loan Nigel one or two of her questions at PMQs today? I think that would really show some coming together with the right of centre. That's not going to happen. Tim in Gloucester, you have a new viewer. Hurrah! We're up to 13. My mother, she absolutely agrees with Rupert Lowe and you. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Jezza. This is Stephen Hartz. Herein we have the actual problem of British politics at the moment. Keir Starmer threatened the Labour Party with a general election. We need a general election. We need rid of Keir Starmer. But to keep their jobs, Labour MPs and Labour ministers knowing full well that Starmer's completely incompetent and that Reeves is completely incompetent and destroying this country would rather hang on to their jobs than do anything to actually benefit the country. This narrow self-interest also extends completely into the Tory party, who are a disgrace alongside the Labour Party. But this is the problem we've got. These people aren't here to make the country better. They're here to make themselves richer.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 5 to 10. Julia in the Tick. Morning, Jez. Great show. Thank goodness for Rupert Lowe. This scandal of all scandals and the rape gangs and systematic abuse of our kids across our country would have been silenced without him. He is absolutely right. It is going on today in every corner of this country and has been allowed by every political party in government. Tash, a very good morning to you. I'm absolutely heartbroken that the rights of British women and girls is secondary to the rights of illegal migrants. I'm also dumbfounded that as a 44-year-old British woman in this country, women in this country have always had to manage and bat off unwanted advances and unwanted attention by, yes, white men. But now we contend with our police and government giving these illegal men more rights than ourselves, and we have to live in fear. My heart breaks for that young girl, but my head says this is only the start. Elaine, good morning. I'm so sorry for that young 12-year-old girl that got raped and the Epstein victims as well. Please don't forget, though, about the victims of the rape gangs. They seem to be forgotten with all the other stories going on. Davis in Bristol, apart from being incandescent about the damage and humiliation that Starmer has inflicted on the British people, the fact that he expects us to believe all the guff that he spouted yesterday further stokes the anger. We all know about his working class cabinet. Some have never worked. Doesn't matter if they've ever come from what they consider a background. They don't know what they're doing. Hello to Alan Hanratty. Hope I've got that right. Morning, Jez. My first job was delivering and filling the shelves of a chain of bakery shops. I didn't enjoy it, so begrudgingly I gave up because I always had the cob on. Do you see what he did there? It's quite clever. This was because, by the way, that actually Kemi Badenoch yesterday went to McDonald's and served burgers and things and talked about the importance of first jobs. Nice. Jeremy, says Zarina, his government is letting down our children and young people in favour of economic migrants, boat people and criminals. Ivor? He's not an engine. Morning, Jez. My first job was working for the butchers. He used to say to me, this is very good, don't sit on the bacon slicer. I'm getting a little bit behind with my orders. Do you see what happened there? Good. That's from Ivor in Chelmsford. Hello, Jez, says Steve Buller. My first job was 2 paper rounds in the Harborne area of Birmingham. That was bro. I held these rounds for nearly 2 years. I felt rich compared to my mates. And, says Steve in Stafford, I survived. First job, Jez, was cleaning the toilets out at a Littlebrook power station in Dartford after school. Not nice, but good money. And Darryl, to finish, says my first job was a chicken catcher. £10 a night and a free chuck at the end of the shift. Loading chickens into crates to be sent for processing. Looking back, it wasn't the nicest job, but I was 15 and saving for a lambretta. Julia Hartley-Brewer.
Good morning. I love all these stories. Isn't it amazing how... Well, it shouldn't be amazing at all, how proud people are of their first jobs.
What was yours?
I think burger takeaway. Chopping onions and garlic all day on a Saturday at a burger takeaway.
Really?
Schwartz Brothers in Bath. Best burgers in the world.
In Bath?
In Bath, right, yeah,
Gosh.
Bath.
Geese, bananas, gloves, spiders,
Oh!
M&S.
Oh, no. No.
Christian very quickly worked in Asda, in the salad bar, and on his first day took his empty salad bowl into the area back where they were doing, and his line manager was... I
don't want to hear this.
I know.
OK.
I know, with a colleague.
Well, there you are then.
Yeah,
nothing so exciting at ours. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that story. Honestly, those first jobs, absolutely vital. We're going to be talking about stabbings, shootings at schools, who are the perpetrators, rapes. And can we just talk about who we think the perpetrators actually are? Not female in a dressing